Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gathering around and joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And guys, we got some good stuff to talk about here today, including something that just surprised all of us. But first of all, let me introduce the day vampire himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, it's one of those just deliciously giddy kind of mornings. You got all kinds of great stuff to talk about, and I'm Ghibli, John. I haven't been Ghibli like this in a long time.
And indeed, there are many things to be Ghibli of. That is indeed for sure. And guys, we're going to talk about a lot of things here today. We're going to talk, of course, about the Oscar nominations that just came out. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Seth MacFarlane is leaving Fox, apparently. He's got a new deal with NBC, and yet he's still going to be at Fox at the same time. We'll talk about that. Hannibal spinoff show, Clarice, is coming, and a few other things. But Rob, before we talk about any of that, we're going to have to talk about this. The first trailer for Morbius has just dropped. Now, the other day, I put up on my Twitter this image from Morbius. You probably saw it, where of Jared Leto in his kind of vampire form. And I said at the time on Twitter, I said, you know, this movie might be great. It might be total garbage. But the one thing we can say right now is that it looks like they pretty much nailed a great look.
Yes,
for Morbius.
they did.
But, I mean, really, we don't get our first taste until the trailer comes. I'll tell you what, Rob, I said when we talked about the upcoming comic book films in 2020, I said that one of the most interesting ones that has maybe the widest gap between just how bad it could be and just how good it could be was Morbius. Like, I really had no idea. This could have been a total... And it might still be. I loved this trailer. As a first trailer, I absolutely 100% unabashedly loved it. I thought it was great for a first trailer, like not the all-time greatest trailer or anything like that, but for a first trailer, I thought it was really terrific. I have taken my intrigue for Morbius, and I'm quite excited for this film at this point. The way the scoring of the music was great. I thought the shots they chose, they really didn't tell us much about the film as a first trailer. You don't really need to. But you give us the basic bare bones of what it is we're about to get. And I loved that Jared
Harris.
I love Jared Harris's, that line at the end, like, how far can we go to fix something that was broken? Until the remedy is worse than the problem, or whatever it was. This is such a great line. But obviously, I don't know how far where I'd have to go to find this, but I want to see if I can find, just off the top of my head. Oh, I can't find it here. But at one point, we saw a leaked image. Here we go. We saw a leaked image. And let me see if I can properly get this. I don't know if I can find it or not. But there's an image, and I can't find it here, but that we saw a leaked image of where Jared Leto's walking down an alley, and he comes across, there's a big mural of Spider-Man on the wall with the words written over it, murderer. With the words murderer written over it. I'm like, what? Wait, what? What? There's been some suggestion that now in these last final films, an arrangement between Sony and Marvel, that we could be getting some sort of crossover stuff, but seeing Spider-Man on the wall with murderer, which is, of course, is a callback to Spider-Man Far From Home, where at the end credits, J. Jonah Jameson outs Spider-Man as a killer and a murderer. I'm like, okay, so is that just, I see that in the trailer, I'm like, is that just like a little Easter egg, just a little fun thing, but not really meaningful? And then this happens. All of a sudden, Michael Keaton pops up to it and says, like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute, time out. I'm not going to pretend I know what this means. I'm not going to say anything definitive and pretending that I know what it means. But Rob, let me throw it over to you. Number one, your basic feelings on this Morbius trailer, and then what did you take out of it? What are you sensing here?
Well, first of all, I've always loved horror combined with superhero comic books. Morbius has been a favorite character of mine for a long time, just like Werewolf by Night. I love the fact that they decided to make a Morbius movie, and I have to say, John, I was dubious about it as well. I'm a huge fan of Jared Leto in the right roles. I love the movie Mr. Nobody that people don't know, but it's one of the finest science fiction films of the last 20 years. I thought he was perfect casting for this because basically he is the vampire Lestat, a rock star who's also a vampire. But in this case, he's a doctor who wants to cure himself. The movie looks like it nails the tone, at least in this trailer. I mean, using a classical music riff throughout the trailer is, I thought, great. The design of everything is great. The feel of it, everything that's going on, having Jared Harris. I mean, talk about classing up the joint. This movie really looks like they're going for broke. It looks, dare I say it, a little highbrow, which I love. I'm always about verisimilitude, as you know. I'm the viceroy of verisimilitude. This movie looks like it has that in spades. The design, the final design of Morbius is so good. I mean, I don't know how much of it we're going to see in the movie, but it's so good. And then, of course, how is this going to tie into the Spider-Man universe? But bam. I mean, I don't quite know what it all means, but oh my God. If we are going to only get 2 more movies with Spider-Man in the MCU and they're going to transition over to what they're building here, color me stoked, John, because it looks like, wow, unlike, say, other big franchises, once again, Marvel and certainly now Sony, they're in cahoots, dude. They're collaborating. Something's going on here. We didn't know this. How do we not know that Michael Keaton was in this movie? They kept it under wraps. They knew what they were doing. They wanted to make us fanboy out and go crazy, and that's exactly what we're doing here on this show. And I think they're doing a wonderful job of it.
And just for those of you, I'm not bringing up there's that spot in the trailer. Of course, you can see the Spider-Man image, which kind of looks like a Spider-Man image from the video game. But there's the Spider-Man image up there with the murder line over there. Look, and I think we should say this right now. We don't know. I mean, this could be a little, let's just explore the possibilities here for a second, okay? There is an argument to be made here that this could be a little bit of trickery on the part of Sony to jump on the Marvel train and say, look, this is a tease that maybe it's a part of the MCU when maybe in actuality it's not, and it's just little Easter eggs. Like, it could be Michael Keaton's a totally different character. It could be that is just some random piece of art on the wall that's meant as a little bit of a wink to the audience. That is possible. But I got to say, and I don't know which one it is, Rob. I don't know definitively which one it is.
Me neither.
But I think it's safe to say at this point, it's at least being hinted that this is indeed to some degree crossing over with the Spider-Man we know in the MCU. Whether that means they're transitioning that Spider-Man over gradually, whether there'd be any other sort of references to the MCU or not, as yet to be seen. We just don't know what's going on. But it looks like that's what they're teasing, and it's damn tantalizing, dude.
Oh, it is
damn tantalizing at this point. So I don't know. Again, not the best trailer of the year. It's just that this is a movie. This Morbius movie is a film that, again, we've just been in complete fog about. I mean, like, what's it going to be? Is it going to be something really special? Is it going to be something completely terrible? Everybody's questioned the logic about doing a Morbius movie at this point. And understanding all that uncertainty, I think the trailer that we got was pretty damn good. I think the trailer we got was pretty damn good.
You know, it looks, what I love about it's embracing the horror elements. I mean, the idea of a doctor who's trying to cure people and trying to cure himself. And I mean, they've nailed his origin, and they're really embracing. I mean, I was too worried that maybe they'll go a little bit more over the top like they did with Venom, but it looks like they're really tonally embracing what Morbius is supposed to be. And I love that. I think it's great. I mean, we're getting, again, different genre of movie, but still adding to the overall tapestry. And I love that.
And I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves because, again, it is just a first trailer.
Right.
And we've seen lots of great trailers to movies that have sucked. Absolutely. And we don't really know what we just saw. But listen, we say this all the time, Rob. The job of a trailer is to take your enthusiasm needle wherever it is, no matter how high or how low, and bump it up a couple of notches. And I've got to say, mission accomplished. You've taken me from being really interested and intrigued by this movie about what it could be to legitimately excited for it. I'm now legitimately excited. So question here is, guys, what did you think about the new and first trailer for Morbius? I personally think it's a winner. Maybe some of you guys weren't as impressed by it at all. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know what you guys think. All right. With that down, let's move on to some other little minor news that came out in the world of movies today, Rob. Some minor news. Apparently, at some point somewhere in Los Angeles today, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences announced their nominations for the upcoming Academy Awards. Who knew? So the nominations have come out, and Rob, right now, it's a little bit of a big win. Just a little bit of a massively big win for Joker. Joker leads the way with the most nominations of any film this year, sitting at 11 Academy Award nominations right now, and which is just unbelievable. I mean, it's a tremendous, first of all, accomplishment just to get 11 nominations. That's crazy good. Let's right now take a look at who some of the big ones are, Rob. As we look over this list here, we see for Best Picture, here were your nominees: Ford v. Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. Now, I'm a little surprised. They 9 nominees this year, and of course they can have anywhere between 7 and 10, I believe. They ended up with 9 this year. So there you have that, 9 nominees for Best Picture. A little bit of a surprise. I mean, I'm totally happy because Ford v. Ferrari is in my top 5 of the year, so I'm glad it got nominated. But I got to admit, I'm a little bit surprised it got a nomination. I thought there was a possibility here that Two Popes. I also thought maybe The Farewell might sneak in there. I thought Uncut Gems might sneak in there, although Uncut Gems isn't in my top 10, so I'm perfectly satisfied that it didn't. But I thought that. But Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, which is my number 1 film of the year, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite. I don't see a lot of surprises here under the Best Picture category, Rob.
No.
Anything here that really surprises you?
No, and I to live with Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig. I mean, their household must be pretty happy this morning, the two of them together.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, that to see Marriage Story and Little Women, I liked that. But I agree with you. Although I do think that these nominations are all sort of well deserved. I mean, we've got some world class films, and I think Ford v. Ferrari, pound for pound, was maybe the most entertaining movie I saw all year in terms of a big studio release. It was also a film that was a Fox movie, and Disney put it out and they got behind it. And I love to see that. I didn't expect it either, but it was nice to see it get in there because it is wildly entertaining. But the rest of these are, I think, to be expected. No big surprises for me here.
If there was one on that list for Best Picture, Rob, that you could point out and say, oh, this one maybe surprises me a little that it got in there. Sorry about that. This one maybe surprised me a little bit in there that it got in on that. Which one would you point at and say, maybe this one surprises me a bit?
Well, I haven't seen Little Women, but the what I've read about it, I'm hoping to see it in the next week. Probably Little Women. But then again, I loved Lady Bird. I know you weren't as big a fan of it as I was, but
right.
Greta Gerwig definitely, again, I'm always about authorship, and she definitely brings a great, unique perspective. And it's not surprising that it's on here, but I was surprised that we didn't see other movies like The Farewell. That was a very lauded film, very beloved film. We didn't see that get on the list, but, I understand. I can understand.
All right, let's move down to some other categories here. As we move into Best Lead Actor, we've got Antonio Banderas, which I think is a little bit of a surprise. Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver for Marriage Story, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, and Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes. And he was absolutely ridiculously good. Some notable absences from this list. Taron Egerton for Rocketman, which did get some. I'm not personally surprised he didn't get a nomination here, but he had gained a little bit of momentum with some of the other awards, so he didn't get in there. Eddie Murphy did not get one for Dolomite Is My Name. I don't ever think he had a serious chance at it, but there are some people thought he would. One name that a lot of people thought would sneak in here was Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with Uncut Gems not getting a Best Picture nomination. I thought instead of Antonio Banderas, I thought we would get Adam Sandler in there. So that's one. And then, of course, the one we've been talking about for a lot of this award season, which is no Oscar nomination for Robert De Niro for The Irishman. And yet, as we move a little bit further on, Al Pacino and Joe Pesci do get nominations. It does get nominated for Best Picture. It does get nominated for Best Director. It didn't get the Best Actor nomination. I actually thought Robert De Niro was the strongest part of the movie. So anyway, you look at the Best Lead Actor list. Any big surprises to you?
Well, I think the lack of De Niro being here, but he was instrumental in getting The Irishman made. He's listed as a producer, so it's not like he isn't nominated for something. But yeah, I look, I've always said that De Niro, he's played this role his entire life, beginning with Mean Streets, through Goodfellas, Casino, and this is sort of the capper of that, of his work with Scorsese. I can understand why people are like, well, we've seen him do it before. But like you said, he was tremendous in the film. So it is sort of surprising he doesn't get this nod. But Antonio Banderas, it was funny. I was watching last night before I went to bed. Elizabeth was watching Puss in Boots. And I just, Antonio Banderas is, I think, one of the great, he got a nomination here, but he never comes up when you think about our great actors. But he absolutely is. All the work he did with Pedro Almodovar and everything, the guy's amazing. He's just amazing. And he's been amazing his whole career. And it's nice to see him get this award. Unexpected, but definitely well-deserved.
All right, I forgot. Let's just jump back for a second to the Best Picture thing. Early pick for Best Picture. Not who do you think should win. Early pick for who you think will win Best Picture. Early pick right now. Who do you got?
Well, I'm still going to stick with my dark horse candidate. Well, not dark horse, but I said The Irishman was going to win Best Picture from the beginning, even before I saw it. I'm going to stay with that. I'm going to say I think all the momentum right now is behind 1917. Yeah, it is.
I think 1917 is going to take a lot of awards, and I think one of the ones it's going to take is Best Picture. Again, my pick would be Jojo Rabbit, but I think the one that's going to win here is 1917. All right, let's move on here to the Best Actor category. We take a look at this right now. Who is your early pick? Who's your pick right now to win? Who do you think takes it?
I think Joaquin Phoenix is going to take it.
I agree with you. I think Joaquin Phoenix is going to take that one as well. All right, let's move on to lead actress here. We got Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, Scarlett Johansson for Marriage Story, Saoirse Ronan for Little Women, Charlize Theron for Bombshell, Renee Zellweger for Judy. There's not a lot of big surprises here, but two that do stand out. One, there was a lot of momentum going in for, even though she was considered a long shot before, heading into these final days, Awkwafina seemed to pick up a little bit of momentum. There was some thought that Awkwafina might slip in there for the farewell. She did not. And Lupita Nyong'o, former Academy Award winner already, some people thought her performance in Us. I didn't love that movie, but oh my God, you cannot help but love her performance. She doesn't get in there. Rob, you take a look at this list. Any notable absences for you?
Not really. I thought Cynthia Erivo getting in was pretty nice. She's having a pretty good year. She's on HBO's The Outsider. So I think that was nice to see, but these are basically what I expected. I'm a huge Saoirse Ronan fan, so it's nice. I think she's going to be a powerhouse. She's going to probably wind up being considered the next Meryl Streep in 10 or 20 years. And none of these really are surprising. I think Renee Zellweger is going to take it again for Judy.
I got to agree with you. I think Renee Zellweger takes it for Judy. Outside of that, I think they may actually go with Charlize Theron for Bombshell. But I'm going to say Renee Zellweger probably takes this one. All right, let's move down into Best Supporting Actor. This is a stacked category, Rob. Absolutely stacked category. So we got in here Tom Hanks for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes, Al Pacino and Joe Pesci both for The Irishman, Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Rob, I look at this. There's definitely an argument to be made for Willem Dafoe for Lighthouse. He was incredible in that. Jamie Foxx for Just Mercy. He's wonderful in that. But I think these have been our 5 front runners for a while. No real big surprise here. Any surprises in Best Supporting Actor for you?
Not at all. This is exactly pretty much what we expected. Although, unlike the Golden Globes, I think Tom Hanks is going to take this. I really do.
Tom Hanks. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to pick a dark horse here. I'm actually thinking they might give it to Anthony Hopkins.
They could.
Sitting down and watching The Two Popes, first of all, the performance of both these guys is ridiculously good. And their chemistry on screen was fantastic. Honestly, it could be, I don't think it'll be Pacino or Pesci. I think they're going to cancel each other out. Tom Hanks, I think there's a strong argument. I think my top two picks are going to be Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt. I think Brad Pitt's also got a lot of momentum here, but I'm going to stick with Anthony Hopkins for now. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's move down into supporting actress. We got Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell. I was a little bit surprised to see that, to be honest with you. Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh for Little Women, Margot Robbie for Bombshell. As we look at some of the people who did not get in there that they thought there might have been a little bit, a lot of people thought that as far as Bombshell goes, that Nicole Kidman could have been the one to get that nomination as opposed to Margot Robbie. They went with Margot Robbie. Annette Bening in The Report was there as well. And a lot of people thought Zhao Xuan for The Farewell might also get in there. She did not. At the end of the day, though, not a lot of surprises here either. I think Laura Dern for Marriage Story probably takes this. She's absolutely a powerhouse in that. As are all these performances, I'm going to say Laura Dern wins this. What do you think?
I think I'm going to go with you as well. I mean, obviously, she won the Golden Globe, and she's very well liked. She's been acting her whole life, and I've never heard an ill word spoken about Laura Dern. And obviously, she delivered a performance. But you know what? My dark horse in this one, the fact that she even got in this, I've heard so much. I have not even seen Richard Jewell, but I've heard nothing but praise for Kathy Bates, and the fact that she's got in here, and I think that she. Just judging, I mean, knowing what she's done in the past, I think Annie Wilkes, Stephen King's, number one fan, could take it. I think she could take it. I think she might be an upset.
All right, let's move into Best Director. And we've got, again, this was another stacked one. We got Marty Scorsese for The Irishman. Todd Phillips does get the nomination for Joker. Sam Mendes gets nominated for 1917. Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. A couple ones that I thought you could consider here. Obviously, the big glaring missing one to me is Taika Waititi for Jojo Rabbit, which
Absolutely.
I thought was the best film of the year. He does not get it. I don't know who I bump out of this list, though. I mean, I probably bump out Quentin Tarantino. I don't think this is his best effort, but a lot of people think it is, so that's fine. But I would have replaced Quentin Tarantino for Taika Waititi. Greta Gerwig for Little Women is one that they thought might have a chance in here, but she was a long shot for most of the run here. So really, other than the Taika Waititi, I didn't expect Rian Johnson to get a Best Director nomination for Knives Out. So not a lot of surprises, other than I really did want to see Taika Waititi nominated in here. He doesn't get it, although he did get the nomination for the Directors Guild of America, but they didn't nominate him for the Academy Awards. Anyway, Rob, you're looking at this list. Who takes home the Oscar for Best Director, do you think? Early pick.
Well, I think it's going to be Sam Mendes because of the conception of what they did. The whole idea about making it look, I mean, obviously it wasn't just one shot, but making it look like it was, the staging of the action. I still can't get over that one shot when the plane crashes. They did a behind the scenes thing on it. Just how they figured it all out.
Don't give away too much for people who haven't seen it yet, though.
Right. But it's just you can see that scene and how it's just one shot, but it's so brilliantly staged. And I just think that I think he's gonna win.
All right, and I'm with you on that, actually. I think Sam Mendes, again, I just think all the momentum right now is behind 1917. He's been picking up a lot of the major awards, so I think he's going to pick up the Oscar as well. All right, let's move into animated feature. Really interesting list of films on animated feature.
This was really surprising, John.
It is just a little bit, and I guess it shouldn't be, especially after coming out of the Golden Globes, but How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, a wonderful film. Not the best of the franchise, but a wonderful, wonderful conclusion. I Lost My Body. I didn't think it would get a nomination. It did. Klaus, the Netflix animated movie that I finally got around to watching because everybody bothered me to go see it, and it's wonderful. Missing Link, which I got to admit, I'm a little bit surprised is on there. It's better than it looks, but I'm surprised. And Toy Story 4 gets in there as well. I mean, look, there were also obviously a bunch of other films that could have been considered in there. I thought Abominable. I really liked Abominable. I liked it way more than I thought I would. And Frozen 2, I thought was really, really quite good. I thought those could have got in there. Look, at the end of the day, I think it's just academic which one's got, because I really do feel like this is Toy Story 4's award to win. Of course, it didn't win the Golden Globe, but I think that's irrelevant. The Golden Globe gave it to Missing Link, as a matter of fact. But I think it's going to go to Toy Story 4. Rob, anything glaring from missing off this list, and which one do you think is going to be the early favorite here?
No, but I definitely was surprised about these two Netflix titles. Obviously, Missing Link didn't surprise me, but I love that Laika Studios, I'm a huge fan of Laika. I love what they're doing, and it was great to see that. But I'll tell you something. I think you're probably right about Toy Story 4, but I haven't heard people talk about an animated movie the way they're talking about I Lost My Body. I've heard more people bring that up to me, and that's sort of, that was out of left field. Hey, it was made by French dudes. And of course, you go back to things like The Triplets of Belleville or something, and it's such an odd film, and I think it could win.
All right, let's move on to the next category here. We get into the screenplays. Best adapted screenplay. We got nominated The Irishman, which of course nominated based on the book Here You Paint Houses, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, and The Two Popes. Now, a couple of other ones that people thought really did have a possibility here. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I actually kind of expected to see Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood on this list. I didn't think it was going to win, but I thought it was going to be on this list. It didn't get in there. I also thought Just Mercy had a shot of getting in here as well. You know what? I would personally give this one to Jojo Rabbit. I think it's going to go to Steve Zalian for The Irishman. I think they're probably going to end up giving a little bit of love to Irishman in this thing. I think it's probably going to be Best Adapted Screenplay. Which one do you see winning?
Well, I'm with you. I think the screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, perhaps the most audacious, certainly the most audacious script of the year, doing what he did with that. But I think you're right. I mean, I'm a big Steve Zalian fan. I really thought that the screenplay for The Irishman was tremendous, and I definitely think that it has a real shot. But it would not surprise me if we see Taika Waititi up there taking home the gold for the screenplay for Jojo Rabbit.
It was so good. It was so good. So I'll just leave it at saying I hope that you're right about that. I would love that. But I think it's going to go to Steve Zalian. All right. We get now into Best Original Screenplay. Very happy to see that Rian Johnson's screenplay for Knives Out got nominated. It was a brilliantly wonderful, wonderful film and wonderful screenplay. Marriage Story by Noah Baumbach, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite by Bong Joon-ho, and Jin Won Han. Listen, Rob, this is a big one to me.
It's brutal.
This one's a big one.
Yeah.
Because I think there are arguments here to be made. I really thought Booksmart had a shot at this one. I knew Booksmart wasn't going to get a lot of Oscar love. I thought it had a shot at this one, to be honest with you. I thought The Farewell had a shot. Rocket Man, a lot of people thought Rocket Man could have popped up in there. Although I'm still torn on that. Wouldn't Rocket Man, like people are saying it would have fallen under the original screenplay, but I'm like, but it's based on, anyway, whatever. Tremendous list here. Again, all the momentum is 1917. I think 1917 probably takes us. How do you see it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the one thing that people did love about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think universally, people love that script. They love the hangout aspects of it. If it's not 1917, I do think it's going to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, I really do.
All right. Let's move on now to one of the fun ones here, cinematography. There's some of the films this year, the cinematography has been mind-blowing. We got The Irishman, we've got Joker, we've got The Lighthouse, which we don't talk a lot about the cinematography in Lighthouse. It is breathtaking. 1917 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'll go so far, Rob. This is the first one I'm going to say about this. I will be shocked if Roger Deakins doesn't win for 1917. It's not just that this one's my pick. I'll be shocked, like a fall out of my chair surprised if he doesn't win this one. How do you see that one going?
Dude, I think it's Deakins' year again. I mean, he was a man that sat by the wayside after one of his genius movies year after year after year until Blade Runner 2049. But following up with this, I think Roger Deakins is going to take it home.
All right, well, we're going to skip over some categories here and stick in some of the major ones. And the next one we're going to go up to here, which that was the wrong one I just picked. The next one we're going to go to here is film editing. Best editing in a film. I know this one's close, near and dear to your heart, Rob. Ford v. Ferrari, which the editing in that is crazy good.
Yeah.
The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite. I'll tell you what, I've said this before, I will say it again. I know Joker's getting a lot of love, but one of the things about Joker I think has been overlooked all this time has been the editing of the film. I think it is a brilliantly edited film that plays right into the DNA of the film itself. The editing tells the story in this movie. I thought it was fantastic. So I think Jeff Groth for Joker takes this one. What about you?
Well, look, you make a compelling point about Joker, but I have to say, only because when I watched it, I, as somebody who edits myself, I was blown away by the editing in Ford v. Ferrari.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
I mean, normally I know editing is always paired up with other higher categories where they take the awards, but I think Ford v. Ferrari was, my God, those sequences, breathless, just unbelievably breathless, really amazing stuff. So I think Ford v. Ferrari is going to take it.
All right, and then we get into our sound categories. Of course, two different ones, sound editing, sound mixing, and we'll just fly through both of these because honestly, I think both are going to be taken for the same movie. I really do, which is not unusual. Under sound editing, we have Ford v. Ferrari, we have Joker, we have 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Under sound mixing, we have Ad Astra, Ford v. Ferrari, Joker 1917, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I'll tell you what, I believe the sound editing and sound mixing, I believe are both going to go to Ford v. Ferrari. There's just something to that, the sound in that movie that is so immersive and brings you in and adds to the realism of what you're feeling in the movie itself. So yeah, I think Ford v. Ferrari takes both of them. Rob, how do you see that?
100%. 100%.
Oh, really?
Sound mixing, yeah. Because usually one goes with the other. The sound mix in those films is unbelievable. I mean, thunderous. I loved seeing that film in a theater with the volume crank because it was so loud.
Speaking of loud, you've got a dog there I can hear. All right, let's move on here. Next one. We're going to move into production design. We've got The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite. Listen, the production design is such a massive part, Rob, of all of these films. I mean, you read Irishman and you think, oh, it's going to be Irishman. Oh, but Jojo Rabbit. Oh my God, recreating Nazi Germany in that era. Yeah, it's going to be Jojo Rabbit. Then 1917 is like, oh my God. No, it's going to be 1917. Then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they physically transformed Hollywood back into its state of the 1960s. You're thinking that. Parasite was also gorgeous. Listen, for no other reason other than immersion, I think Jojo Rabbit actually takes best production design. I just think when you look into that, recreating the Nazi Germany world of that time, I just think it did a half step maybe above the incredible production design 1917, The Irishman, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But honestly, maybe not Parasite, but any one of these four can win. This might be the tightest and most unpredictable one to me, but I'm going to lean towards Jojo Rabbit. How do you see it?
Well, Jojo Rabbit, obviously, you know, it does have great production design. But I have to say, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, everything they did, the period recreations, the posters.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like we hadn't watched movies from World War II for the last 50 years. And I think what they did in terms of the scope, I mean, just what they did to Hollywood Boulevard was pretty amazing. But that may be, I'm prejudiced being, living here. I got to actually see that production design. Some of it's still up. And I really quite enjoyed that a lot. So I'm going to go with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Like I said, I can't make an argument against that. I mean, I think any one of those top four, I think absolutely could run in there. Best original score, we got Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. By the way, side note on Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker with its Oscar nomination. It does mark 3 Oscar nominations for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Most significantly, though, it is John Williams's, sit down, folks, 52nd Academy Award nomination.
Really?
This is John Williams's Big 52, ladies and gentlemen, his 52nd Academy Award nomination. Probably his final Star Wars film, and what a way to go out. He ain't winning this award this year. He's not winning this award this year. But I thought we would have been absolutely remiss if we didn't take a second and point out this. Only one person, Rob, only one person has more Academy Award nominations than John Williams. Going to put you on the spot here. Who do you think that one person is? It's a tough one. I know it's a tough one. Who do you think is that top spot person? Most Academy Award nominations in history. And it's got him beat by a good 10 or more, I think.
Alfred Newman?
No, Alfred Newman actually trails me. He's got a ton. I think he's in the 30s or 40s. Walt Disney. Walt Disney has, I believe, 60 plus Academy Award nominations, if I'm not mistaken. But Walt Disney's actually ahead of him. So there you go. As far as acting goes, who has the most Academy Award nominations? This is a neat little piece of trivia. I think you might get this one.
Of all time?
Yes. Most acting nominations of all time.
Is it not De Niro?
It's not. It's actually, you mentioned her a little bit earlier.
Meryl Streep.
It's Meryl Streep with 21 Academy Award nominations. So it's a little bit interesting stuff there. But again, the 52nd Academy Award nomination for John Williams. Anyway, as we get into the original score thing here, wonderful score for Joker. Really good score for Little Women. Marriage Story, all of it. 1917 was great too. I actually think this is Joker's. I think that music plays so well into the atmosphere of the film. The music itself compels and elicits the emotions out of us that I think Todd Phillips wanted to get out of us for each individual scene. They play such an integral part of it. I think Joker wins this. Who do you see taking Best Original Score?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, Hildur, Goodman's daughter. No, good. I can't pronounce those Icelandic last names, but she also scored Chernobyl. And talk about somebody who's come on the scene and brought a whole new indication of what a movie score can be. Really innovative, really interesting. And like you said, Joker wouldn't be nearly the film it is without that kind of scoring. And she knocked it out of the park.
She absolutely did. All right, and now we're going to jump down. The last one we're going to cover here today. Of course, we could just go all day on this, but best visual effects. Of course, this is a category that is near and dear to my heart. Best visual effects. Our nominations are Avengers Endgame so Avengers Endgame does pick up an Academy Award nomination. The Irishman, obviously. 1917, The Lion King, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Rob, look. To me, this is the easiest decision in the world. It should be, but it's not going to be. This should be the easiest decision in the world. This is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. And it doesn't matter what you think about the movie as a whole. This award is not the best movie that has visual effects. This is best visual effects. To me, it is a no-brainer. It's sign the check right now, take it to the bank. It should absolutely be Lion King. There is simply no rational explanation for Lion King not winning Best Visual Effects. The entire movie is a massive visual effect to the point that most people were completely fooled that this was a CG animated film in its entirety other than the opening sunrise shot. That's it. That opening sunrise, that is it. Every other frickin' shot, every character, every blade of grass, every drop of water, every cloud in the sky, everything is a visual effect brought together to fool us and convince our eyes and our brains that what we were seeing was real. It is an incredible accomplishment regardless of what you think of the movie overall. What you think of the movie overall is irrelevant here. But it's not. It's not going to win. It should absolutely win. But it's not. I don't think even remotely. I think they're going to give this to, I honestly think they're going to give this to The Irishman. Even though The Irishman will only be about fourth on my list. I would give it to Lion King. Next, I would probably give it to Avengers Endgame. Next, I would probably give it to The Rise of Skywalker. But I think they're going to give it to Irishman on this one, Rob. Who do you see winning this thing?
Well, again, what they did with Irishman, despite the fact that somebody will throw up a deep fake video and go, look, this is better than all the money they spent on The Irishman, it doesn't stand up to 4K scrutiny. And what they did with The Irishman was truly groundbreaking. They have, I mean, we'll be able to watch our favorite actors and actresses till they're 90 now, playing roles when they're, 17. It really was groundbreaking technology that was used in such a way that we'd never seen before. So I do agree with you that it probably will be The Irishman. Although, like you said, The Lion King is pretty damn amazing. Now, that's not to say Star Wars and Avengers and 1917 didn't do great stuff, but I don't think there's anything really groundbreaking there necessarily, whereas both Lion King and The Irishman did things that hadn't really been seen, certainly to that extent. So I do think you're right. I think The Irishman's going to take this.
All right. And guys, that kind of wraps it up for the Oscar nominations. Of course, we're going to be talking a lot about this over the coming next month and a half or so until the Academy Awards actually happens. But Joker, again, guys, leading the way. And it brings up an interesting question that I have for you guys, because this is the question of the day for today, guys. This is our question of the day. Of course, Joker leading the way, 11 Academy Award nominations. Star Wars has 3. Avengers Endgame has an Academy Award nomination. My question of the day for you guys is this. With Joker hitting 11 Oscar nominations, including a nomination for Best Picture, which, by the way, guys, second year in a row that a comic book-based film is being nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Let that sink in. Second year in a row. Anyway, Star Wars with 3 and Endgame with 1. Genre-based content, if we're not including animated films. Genre-based content films have 15 nominations at the Academy Awards this year. Can we say that the Academy is embracing genre content more now than it did before? Can we say that with 15 nominations, including 11 for Joker, including a Best Picture nomination? That is the question. Now, as of right now, I put this up just before we started the show. 3,253 of you guys have voted so far. 64.5% of you guys are saying yes, they are embracing genre content more now. 35.5% of you are saying no, they still aren't. They aren't embracing it more now than they did. That's a little over 3,200 of you guys voting that. Rob, let me ask you this question, because I know you've been very critical of the Academy as far as its embracing of the genre types of films. We now have 3 years in a row where a major category had a comic book film in it. We had a Best Screenplay nomination, of course, for Logan. We have a Best Picture nomination for Black Panther. We have a Best Picture nomination for Joker, including many others. 15 nominations in total this year for major genre stuff at any rate. Do you see them as maybe embracing more, or do you still think, no, they're still kind of stuck in neutral right now?
No, I mean, I absolutely think that, it's interesting to me that people look at Joker and everyone's like, well, it's not really a comic book movie. But when people who've read comic books, especially if you read comic books from other countries, comic books are just another form of literature. And they're graphic literature. And they have been, especially in this country, poo-pooed for so long. But what Joker does is it shows that you can elevate it doesn't matter where a story came from. Depending on how you approach it, if you're going to take something seriously, the subject matter was definitely there. It's a movie that absolutely speaks to our times. It doesn't matter that the character is a Batman villain. The movie was made about today. It was dealing with concerns that every single person is grappling with, especially here in America. Things like mental health and healthcare itself, and the unfeeling urban environment and the existence that many people are leading. It really spoke to the world, I think, and it shows that just because something was derived from a comic book doesn't mean it can't transcend those origins and be turned into something that nobody expected. And I think that what Todd Phillips did with the Joker, is hopefully the future of genre entertainment. And I think that the Academy, ever since Lord of the Rings, Return of the King took all the awards that it was nominated for home, I think there's been a shift. And as people have gotten older, that the Academy, people have grown up with these movies, that they're now Academy members. So there isn't the prejudice that existed for genre fare before. And I think we're going to see more and more of this happening. And I think it's about time.
All right, guys, so we're going to put the question to you. What do you think about all these Academy Award nominations, guys? There's a lot of stuff to sift through there, and still a bunch of categories that we didn't even touch upon that you know that we will in the coming days and weeks. We're going to go over more and more stuff with the Academy Awards. How do you feel about Joker taking 11 nominations? How do you feel about John Williams scoring his 52nd Academy Award nomination? How do you feel about the number of genre film nominations in there? Do you think the Academy is starting to shift a little bit in its embrace of genre content? All that stuff more. I want to hear what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. Listen, I'm going to pull an audible here. By the way, sorry about the Seattle Seahawks game there the other day. So you and me can commiserate about... They almost got there. They almost mounted a great comeback. But, guys, I'm going to call an audible here, and we're going to forego our other main topics today. We're running a little long, obviously, with the Academy Award stuff that we wanted to talk about. So we're going to forego the main topics today, and we're going to jump right into the live questions, because I think you guys are going to have a lot you're going to want to say. Plus, we've got some questions to get caught up on from over the weekend as well. We're going to get started with those. So listen, guys. 2 ways you can send in a question if you want to send in a live question here for us to address on the show quickly. Number one, use the tip link that's in the very first line of the description of this video. Send it in, or you can use the super chat feature. Hop on over there and we will get to your question. So for now, before we get to the live questions, guys, we are going to do is what we do every day. We're going to take a short 4-minute break here, give you guys a chance to get up and stretch your legs, use the bathroom, give us a chance to stretch the legs, rest the vocal cords, refill our drinks, all that sort of stuff. So hang with us, guys. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back in 4 minutes. Stay tuned. Guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for indulging us as we took a little bit of a break there. So without any further ado, let's now dive over and start getting caught up on the live questions. Again, we're going to start off with some that were left over from the weekend, and then we'll get right into today's as well. And we're going to get things started off here with Ethan Hunt, who writes, I just finished Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice. That's actually one I haven't read yet. Thought the end was abrupt, but overall had a fun time. Is it safe to say Miss Claudia is the new queen of Star Wars novels now? She's 4 for 4. She's also the one who did Lost Stars, which I think is one of the best Star Wars novels out there. It's incredible. And then she did some stuff with Leia, Master and Apprentice. That's one I haven't seen. I liked her Leia stuff as well. She might be the best the best author for Star Wars going right now. She did an incredible job with that. Ethan also writes, what kind of speculation and theory discussions were some of you older Star Wars fans having about the prequel movies when they were announced? I was young when they were announced, so I didn't have any. Rob, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Because you know what? As I go back and look back at that era, there really wasn't a lot. I mean, fandom was a little bit different back then. Like, yeah, we speculated, but we knew the main thing. We're going to see young Darth Vader. Are we going to see him turn old? When is the whole lava fight going to... This is how we thought at the time. When's the lava fight going to happen that disfigures Vader's... But I don't think... I can't recall... It's a long time ago, but I can't recall a lot of the other theories that were around at the time. Can you think of any?
No, I mean, we knew Palpatine was going to be in it. I mean, I think that was the excitement. You knew that Ben Kenobi and Anakin were going to fight in lava because we were hearing that for so long. But other than that, there wasn't... I mean, people were just excited about seeing a new Star Wars movie. There wasn't... People didn't know, and I'll tell you, John, when that first trailer, that long trailer came out where you saw the Gungan riding out through the fog.
Yep.
I mean, I remember that trailer was so mind-blowing. Everybody was completely excited. We thought, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest movie ever made. And there was really... And when you saw that trailer, it was like, what is all of this stuff? Because you had no idea what any of it was.
Yep, it was all brand new. And again, the social medias of the time was a very different kind of thing. So there wasn't the type of speculations that you get today, but there were certainly some, but mostly revolved around the surface issues. John McKinney writes in, one of two, want to know how you get the girl in the Star Wars universe. I still don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, but hopefully when the 2 comes in, we'll figure it out. Mason Larkins writes, what do you think of Disney's comments saying the New Mutants was in the MCU? They did not make those comments. Let's be very, very clear about that. Also, I heard a rumor that the Morbius trailer is dropping Monday morning. This, of course, was from the weekend at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm pumped for that. Of course, it dropped at about just before 9. Let's talk about this for just a quick second, then we'll move on here, guys. Marvel did not make official comments that New Mutants was in the MCU. There was a line, probably written by an intern, on one of the websites. I believe it might have been like one of the Disney websites, where it said, this new exploration in the Marvel Cinematic Universe of blah, 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 blah. I think that really strikes me as some intern. It's like, oh yeah, the newest Marvel film that's in the Marvel thing that we're doing. It was quickly taken down. So now listen, I also didn't think the new Morbius film was in any way going to be connected with Spider-Man in the MCU, which it still maybe isn't. But I would not read anything into that. And Disney did not make comments. Now, it was on some website. Probably some intern wrote it. They instantly took it down. I really don't think there's anything to it. Rob, do you?
No. Look, Kevin Feige is not going to allow a film from another studio to define anything that happens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Unless it comes from him to begin with, it ain't happening.
All right. Remember, this movie was made long before there were whispers of Disney taking over Fox. So it's something to keep in mind. Nothing is impossible, as we've learned in this movie world. Nothing's impossible, but I think it's very, very unlikely. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, one of two. My favorite Superman line actually comes from a cheap YouTube parody. Lex tries to sell him on going back in time and destroying Marvel, so he'll always be the most popular hero and inspiration. Isn't that why you became a hero in the first place? Superman replies, I also became a hero to stand for certain principles. This thing you're suggesting, for better or worse, would be a lie. And for all of the things I stand for, truth always comes first. That is such a damn Superman line. The Boy Scout. I have not seen that fan film, so I don't know if you're familiar with it, Rob. I have not seen that fan film, but now I want to see it, Ryan. So do me a favor, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and send me a link to that, because that does sound like a line that would be in a Star Wars movie, in a Superman movie for sure. So thanks for sharing that. All right, Ben Rayner writes, Doctor Strange 2 release date May 7th, 2021. Over under 25% by May 14th, 2021. A tweet with hashtag release the Derrickson cut trends on Twitter. Oh, it's going to happen before that, Ben. It's going to happen before that. That's the new thing. Demand some other version of the film that better suits what it is you wanted. That's the total thing, Ben. Absolutely for sure. So I believe there's a very, very high chance for that. All right, Willow writes, how did your net worth go from under 2 million just a few months ago to 87 million? What's your secret? Rob, I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, I did.
But somebody sent me a screen capture. Talked about
you
this
and
in
I
the show.
Rich, John. We're rich.
Yeah, we're filthy rich. Apparently, if you do a Google search right now for John Campea net worth, in the internet's going to tell you I'm actually worth. Did you know I was worth $87 million, Rob?
No, but I want to raise, John.
Well, you don't get one, because when you search Robert Meyer Burnett net worth, I think it says you're worth like 30-something million, are you not?
Yeah, I was like, where are they getting these numbers from? I think they actually transposed a 0 or maybe 6. I'm worth about 32 cents.
Yeah, it's I'm my joke, of course, was that I am doing this show from a spare bedroom instead of a Hollywood studio, instead of owning my own Hollywood studio, because I have $87 million. I mean, I did have a laugh, though. I did have a laugh.
Well, you're frugal, John. You're frugal.
I'm cheap. That's a very kind way of saying I'm cheap, but yes, I'm cheap. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, so if Doolittle fails, does that put Sherlock Holmes 3 in doubt and affect production, or is one flop nothing studios will worry about? One has nothing to do with the other. I don't. Sherlock Holmes has absolutely nothing to do with Doolittle. They both have an actor who's kind of in the lead role, but no, one has nothing to do with the other. If Doolittle becomes a $600 million hit, it's not going to make them fast track Sherlock Holmes. If Dr. Doolittle becomes the biggest flop of the year, which, by the way, almost zero advanced ticket sales on this thing, I'm going to see it tonight, actually. I'm going to go watch Doolittle tonight. But if it's absolute biggest flop, it won't affect Sherlock Holmes 3 at all. One has nothing to do with the other. Rob, do you see that any other way?
No, I mean, the Sherlock Holmes movies did very, very well, and they're very well regarded. Again, I don't think that if this movie were to flop, it doesn't mean the next movie is going to flop too. I don't think it has any relationship with it at all.
All right, next up here is Actor Friend 90, who writes, John, Oscar nominations are Monday. Of course, this was sent in yesterday. Are you doing filthy nominations this year? We did do the nominations, of course, and again, not a lot of surprises. A few minor ones here and there, but no big major surprises to me, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. Tim Platt writes, 2019 not only closed out a decade, but closed out a number of iconic sagas. In the Infinity Saga, Game of Thrones, Star Wars. The fact that Endgame was the only one that was good really sucks. Well, that depends on your point of view. I thought Game of Thrones was fantastic. I know there are a bunch of people who disagree. Good for you. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. Doesn't mean I didn't have my criticisms of it. I do, but I thought it was great. And listen, you and I may not like Rise of Skywalker, but a lot of people do. So there's that. But yeah, it was the end of some really, really big, Rob, geek culture programming came to an end all in the same year. I mean, look, the MCU goes on, but it has been the Infinity Saga so far. How do you reflect on that?
Well, all good things must come to an end, John, and these things can't go on. I mean, what I saw is, whether you love the end of Game of Thrones or you didn't, or whether you thought Endgame was great, I loved Endgame, and I think what it does is it clears the plate for something new, and I really loved what Endgame and Spider-Man: Far From Home brought to the end of the Infinity Saga of the MCU. It really felt like an earned, very satisfying ending for me. Of course, Rise of Skywalker, not so much, But it's nice that these things have sort of a finality to them, that they actually did have an ending, because, it opens the door for, I can't wait to see Dune. We're going to see maybe the end of the Broccoli era of the Bond franchise with No Time to Die in just a few months. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. We move on, life goes on, and it allows us to start thinking and experiencing new things. And that's always good.
All right. We move on now to Patrick Conway, who writes, would watching new Frasier without Martin be weird? No, I don't think so. Of course, they've announced that they're going to be bringing Frasier back. But when you look back at the original show, Martin, who's, of course, Frasier's and Niles' father, he was having health issues. The character was not in the greatest health in the show. To say now, fast forward 20 plus years, that their father is no longer with them, I think will actually feel probably pretty natural. So I don't see that being weird. It's going to be sad, of course, at first, because he was wonderful in that show. But I don't think it's going to be all that weird. David Tapia writes, last night, I attended Kevin Smith's Jay and Silent Bob reboot tour. Fun movie and great Q&A. I paid for VIP with photo op, making it well worth the price. Kevin talked about the upcoming Clerks 3 and Mallrats 2 films. Which are you most excited for? Oh, that's easy. I am most excited for Clerks 3. My favorite film of Kevin Smith's is Clerks 2. That movie has a very special place in my heart that I've talked about on the show before. It's got a very, very special place in my heart. I love that film. So, I mean, all due respect to Mallrats 2, which is great, but the one I'm looking forward to the most is Clerks 3. And that sounds like a really fun time, David. That sounds great. Rob, if you had to say which one you're more excited about, a Clerks 3 or a Mallrats 2, which one are you leaning towards?
I'd have to say, like with you, I've of course, Clerks is where Kevin Smith's career began. I liked Clerks 2 a lot. I like those characters. I think Clerks 3 is something I was just not. I should have been a bigger fan of Mallrats than I was, but I didn't dig Mallrats. So Clerks 3 for me.
All right. Next up, KW Garrett writes, College Humor just laid off its entire team. Collider shed its live programming staff, and Fandom cut back movie fights. Oh, I didn't hear about that. I didn't know that. Either. Does the YouTube profit model work for large content companies, or is it better suited for individual creators like you and John's, etc.? I mean, I don't know. Look, there are a lot of YouTube creators. There are a lot of YouTube creators that can make a lot of money. If you have a massive audience, there are revenue streams available to you. But that doesn't mean you can spend, like, if you have, on a scale of 1 to 100, if you have a scale of 50, which is huge, like say I'm a scale of 3 out of 100. If you have a scale of 50, there's a lot of money to be made, but you can't spend money like you're at the scale of 100. You see what I'm saying? Like, so yes, the model can work absolutely, but there are still basic business principles to be adhered to that you need to keep in mind. You need to be wise. Don't spend more than you make. All that kind of stuff, like just basic little things. And if you're in a position that you're spending infinitely more than you're making, that you need to reassess your thing. And that includes little YouTube creators like myself. Like if I'm spending more money than I'm making, I'm not going to be around very long. It's the same principle that applies. So that's how I see that, Rob. How would you address that quickly?
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, these bigger companies, they, by very definition of being bigger companies, they have overhead that they have to pay for that individual creators don't. I mean, yes, John, you and I still have overhead. We have power, we have internet, we have web services or websites that need to be maintained, but we don't have 20 employees. And I think by keeping costs low, you can actually make YouTube work to a certain extent. But it's a 7-day-a-week job. People don't understand that. And bigger companies, they jump into the fray because they're usually supported by other companies. Or they have other businesses that are helping them. But then they realize there's a bottom line, and it's expensive to have people and to put on shows and have the equipment, and it's not cheap. And people end up, the reason all these companies are cutting back is because they're not doing what they need to do to grow these businesses. They don't put enough into marketing. They don't put enough into innovation. And eventually they can't make it work all the time. You gotta move around. It's like being on a running back in a football game. You gotta run and make your moves, dude, and get through that defensive line. And it's tough.
It's just, a lot of people just don't want to make rational. So for instance, I worked with this one media company one time many years ago that like was renting a place right by Hollywood and Highland. That was renting a place there for $20,000 a month. They were renting $20,000 a month. We didn't need that. Uproot, move your thing an hour and a half away from Los Angeles, rent space for $4,000 a month and get, 75% of the space. I mean, it's just, but a lot of people don't want to spend within their means. And so, yes, I do believe the principle can work. If you spend properly and understand output versus input at a level 3, like me, and you maintain those principles, you can totally work at a level 50 like a larger organization. You totally can. But I think it's just people lose sight of what they're doing. Anyway, we got to move on. It's a great question, Patrick, or KW. All right, Patrick Conway writes, finally saw both Jojo Rabbit 1917, best movies of 2019 in my opinion. ScarJo and Taika deserve nominations, maybe wins, but I think Sam deserves best director win. And I think he's going to get it. Like, I would personally give it to Taika Waititi, personally, but there's no denying, like when Sam Mendes wins this award, I'm going to have no complaints. No complaints. Just like if Marty Scorsese surprises and he wins, I'm going to have no complaints. Like he did a great job directing that film. So not my pick, but I'd have no complaints if he wins. All right, Chocolate Thunder writes, a movie trailer started getting longer when assigned seating was introduced. We used to show up early for good seats, so we had to watch all the ads/trailers. Now we show up later since we know where we are sitting. Probably why trailers keep getting longer. I haven't actually noticed trailers getting much longer, Rob. I mean, for as long as I can remember, trailers has generally been around the 2.5 minute mark, have they not? I mean, I don't see a lot of trailers going 3+ minutes these days, but I think they haven't really gone. I mean, they show more trailers, but they've been showing 25+ minutes of trailers before standard pre-assigned seating, have they not? How do you see this?
No, absolutely. I don't think trailers are getting longer. If anything, I mean, over the decades, trailers actually have gotten shorter. You go back and you look at some trailers that like Hitchcock did, they were long. And I think now the format is usually between 90 seconds and 2 minutes. Sometimes you'll get a trailer that goes 2:30, but for the most part, I think that they're pretty much standard length. There's a trailer standard that the industry is pretty much adhered to.
All right, next one up comes to us from Chocolate Thunder, who writes, is there a story you think could benefit from using another movie gimmick, another movie's gimmick? Example, Superman done like Boyhood. Oh, I don't see how that would have worked. Or Batman like New Apes trilogy, where the first is Bruce at 25 years old, Batman Begins, then 45 Under the Red Hood, and 65 Batman Beyond. Well, though, because those become completely now. See, here's the problem, Chocolate Thunder. At that point, what you're doing is you're completely rewriting those. Those are no longer the movies that they are. Now you're talking about completely different movies.
Right.
Now you're talking about absolutely completely different movies, and it doesn't matter what trope you use. You still got to execute at a high level. Superman, I think, was great. The Batman films were great. So you're not talking about just taking a movie and then applying some minor tweak to it. You're talking about just trashing the entire movie and going with a completely different movie altogether. And I just don't know that you can go anywhere in that sort of a conversation. Rob, how would you respond to that?
No, I agree with you. I mean, that's a different look. You can use gimmicks to do all kinds of different things, but in the case that he's just citing, you're still making 3 movies, and there's problematic. If you want to make them as a single trilogy, maybe that's interesting, but it's still just a trilogy. And I don't necessarily think gimmicks are the way to go. I think what's more interesting is your actual approach to the material. Going over different, like over the course of 4 decades or 6 decades, that could be really interesting. But again, I don't necessarily think that's a gimmick as much as the approach is important. That's why I think Joker, there's a vision behind Joker. And that vision was unique. It was new. It also harked back to Scorsese movies of the 70s. So I don't know if making Batman movies the way it's described is going to necessarily work. It doesn't mean the movies are going to be great.
Right. Okay. Let's move on here. Hello there, writes one of two. John, I remember the early Twitter reaction for The Last Jedi being overwhelmingly positive. I saw it at an early fan screening, and the audience cheered at the end. 2 days later, there was an overwhelming amount of hate. What do you think happened? And does this worry you for big franchise films that decide to take big swings for the future? Well, listen, just because something happens with one film, that doesn't mean there's an evolving thing with like every other film that's coming out. So let's separate that out. I had a similar response or experience with Justice League. I remember the first fan screening I was at. It was an early fan screening, and the first fan screening I was at, it wasn't a standing ovation, Rob, but the audience loved it. The audience loved it. Not too many days after the movie was out, the audience was very, very divided.
Right.
Like, it was very, very divided on it. Last Jedi. Again, the early fan screenings, huge. The critic reaction at first, huge. And then a few days later, whatever. It's going to happen with films. It's going to happen with films. I don't believe that when you see great early reactions like an Endgame and then it continues to be positive, I don't think that means moving forward, everything's going to be positive just because one thing goes the other way. I think it's going to happen. We have to expect it. It certainly does happen, like the example I just gave and the example you just gave, but I don't think it denotes or causes us to worry about or anticipate a major trend that way. Each film is unique and individual and brings its own unique baggage along with it. Rob, how would you describe that?
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, each film is unique. And look, I have to say that I wanted to see Justice League my whole life. And so when you're actually seeing a movie for the first time and you're enjoying, like, oh my God, I'm seeing a live action Justice League movie, a lot of that overwhelms what you might really think about it because you haven't had time to process it yet. You're just letting it wash over you. And only when it's over and you really start thinking, wow, I really didn't like that movie. So people should be allowed to sort of sit with their opinions. Now with social media, everyone's like, what'd you think about it? And you walk out on a high and you give your initial opinions and they might, upon reflection, might not be exactly what you thought. So it depends, I guess.
All right, let's move on here. Chris Warden writes, it's never easy being objective when your personal feelings are involved, but the way you've handled this whole Collider thing was very admirable. Well done. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate that very, very much. Here's hoping for good things for them in the future and good things for everybody moving into the future. So I appreciate that, Chris, very much. All right, Him Yelpert writes, McGregor versus Cowboy Cerrone. Thoughts going in. McGregor wins. I'm going to be cheering for Cowboy Cerrone. I think it's going to be a very, very good, entertaining fight. But I think McGregor wins it. So Dennis Zen and I were just texting yesterday about where are we going to watch this thing. So I think McGregor, but I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful fight. Josh Bing writes, John Boyega's response to Star Wars tweets are legendary. Some good, some bad. I've got mixed feelings on how he's responded to things, to be honest with you. Darth Flamingo writes, hi, John, fellow Canuck here. Given the fact that now social media can promote or destroy movies, question. We see the original trilogy as the gold standard, but would Return of the Jedi be trashed by fans for the Ewoks if released today? Are fans expecting too much? Your thoughts, go Leafs go. It's impossible to say. That would be pure speculation. Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, I know the Ewoks were fantastic. And Return of the Jedi is the greatest film of the greatest film franchise of all time, which is, of course, up for debate. It's a totally subjective opinion. But it's impossible to say. Like, you could ask, would the internet react badly and you go, hashtag, not my Michael, for the fact that he ordered the death of his brother at the end of Godfather Part 2. Would I mean, it's weird to say that, but I mean, we just don't know. Maybe they would. Maybe they would react totally badly for, release the Joe Pesci cut for, his character's fate in Casino. Or, you'd never, ever know. If Usual Suspects, one of the greatest twist endings ever in film, with the Kaiser Soze stuff, would that today, if the Twitter, would people have been upset about this? That would have made no sense. Didn't earn that. And blah, maybe, but it's impossible to say. And we're going to have this same conversation 15 or 20 years from now about movies that are coming out now and audiences responding and reacting to. So it's just impossible to say at this point. It's an interesting thing to think about. It's just difficult to really. No, it's impossible to give any sort of definitive answer. Rob, how would you address that?
Look, I would say that I think people would probably have been upset about like the Ewoks, especially coming after Empire Strikes Back. But like you said, it is impossible to say. It was a very different time, and we didn't have the kind of endless. And by the way, Star Wars fans were different then than they are now. There just wasn't as much fandom. It hadn't existed for nearly as long. Return of the Jedi was brand new. Everybody was just happy to have a new Star Wars movie. So everything is different. Things are different now, John. So it's hard to say.
All right, we move on. Next one comes to us from Jim Sanderlin, who writes, "Hey, John, I've been trying to balance keeping up on all the great content out now and not missing anything. Do you set time aside on a schedule to watch content, or whenever you can, keep it filthy?" It's very difficult for me. Like, I do have scheduled time, particularly when it comes to television. When it comes to television, I have a very fixed schedule. I can watch 1 hour of TV a day. And that's usually over my lunch. When I've done this show and done all the wrap up that I have to do, I go downstairs, make my lunch, pop on the TV, and watch one episode of one thing. Now, every once in a while on weekends or whatever, I might have some free time and I'll binge a few episodes. But for the most part, that's why I have not finished Expanse Season 4. That's why I'm only 2 episodes into the Harley Quinn show. You guys got me turned on to that, so I'm watching that now. I'm behind. I've only on episode 2 of His Dark Materials. I'm only on, like, it's a very, very fixed time. And then I just go to movies in the evenings when they're there, when I need to go see them. And I have to, even now, I have to be picky about that. So it's a little bit of both, Jim. It's a little bit of both. All right, Alex Spur. But look, the reality is, though, is this. There is so much content now, you can't watch it all. I mean, that's just it. So you're going to have to pick and choose. And that means you're going to have to pick some good things to not watch. That's just the reality. It's the embarrassment of riches. It's a good problem to have, but as Rob says, it's the embarrassment of riches. Alex Spur writes, "Hey, John, what is your favorite movie of the past decade? Mine is Life of Pi. Too hard to say.
Yeah,
I'd have to think about it. Off the top of my head, I might say, but I absolutely insist I not be held to this because I'd have to think about it. It might be King's Speech. It might be the King's Speech for me, but I would need to give it more thought. Rob, do you have one off the top of your head that really stands out to you?
There are just so many. I couldn't even begin. I was talking about my favorite 25 movies. I mean, it was everything from Social Network and Inception to Mad Max Fury Road to Blue is the Warmest Color. I mean, there's just so many great films that have come out in the last decade. I couldn't even begin to pick one.
Yeah, at some point I do have to put together my top 10 of the decade, and I will do that at some point, but I haven't narrowed it down yet. 50 Shades writes, "I went to a small college in Texas called Navarro. Shocked to see the Cheer Squad had a new docuseries on Netflix called Cheer. Binged in one night. So much drama. I laughed, cried, and gasped so many times. It proves sports is the ultimate unscripted drama." I have not seen that, 50 Shades of Broke, but I'll tell you what, that sounds fascinating to me. That sounds really fascinating to me. And listen, it's true. Sports is the real reality program. That you cannot write scripts better than actual sports does it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love sports. It is real human drama. I love it, but I have not heard of this, but it sounds fantastic. Rob, have you heard of this thing? Where did he say it is? Say it's on Netflix. I have not even heard of it. Have you?
I haven't heard of it. I'd want to watch it. You know, some people would say I should never say the name Navarro out loud, but that's just me.
But again, showing that Netflix, nobody knows how to bury their own original content like Netflix. Although, to be fair, they are getting a little bit better at it. They are getting a little bit better. Dim Sum 05 writes, 1917 is better than Dunkirk. Good day, sir. I'll tell you what. I love Dunkirk. I think I prefer 1917 a little bit more too. That doesn't take anything away from Dunkirk, but I think I agree with you. Tim Platt writes, Star Wars rank. Number 1, Empire Strikes Back. Number 2, A New Hope. Number 3, The Force Awakens. Number 4, Return of the Jedi. Number 5, Rogue One. Number 6, Revenge of the Sith. Number 7, Solo. Number 8, The Phantom Menace. Number 9, Attack of the Clones. Number 10, The Last Jedi. Number 11, The Clone Wars. Number 12, The Rise of Skywalker. I wouldn't put Rise of Skywalker that low. I mean, I didn't like it. But I mean, it's better. I think it's better than all the prequels. But I mean, that's one of the neat things is that it's so fascinating to see Star Wars fans list and rank Star Wars movies, because it just goes to show that Star Wars fans are not a hive mind. Star Wars fans are not a hive mind, because almost everybody's Star Wars rankings look remarkably unique and very different. Because, Tim, there's a few similarities, but honestly, your list is very different from mine, and mine is very different from Rob's, and Rob's is very different from yours, and all that kind of stuff. It is one of the really neat things about that. So thanks for sharing your list there, Tim. All right, next up, Tiffany Hoffman writes, when do you think we will hear if The Blacklist gets season 8 renewal? I would say probably just maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the finale, because I think they're on their mid-season break right now, and I'm now all caught up on Blacklist. I'm guessing just a few weeks probably before the finale.
How is it? Season?
I like it. I think it's improving again because they were great for a long time. Then I think 1 or 2 seasons got a little bit weaker, but then I think this season's been pretty strong. They had a really great mid-season cliffhanger, so it's going to be interesting to see where they go. But I think probably pretty soon, Tiffany, I'm guessing. All right, Gabriel Reed writes, can I just keep pretending that I'm your son? And Jonathan pulls Clark to his arms and holds him while responding with a tremble, you are my son. I've seen Man of Steel like 739 times, and I've always just kept loving it. But this time, it was a certain kind of special. I'll tell you, Gabriel, look, at the risk of being a broken record, everybody knows how much I love Man of Steel. I think it is the most underrated comic book film of all time. It is an absolute special movie, and it's one of those rare films that to me that just gets better every time I see it. And moments like that, can we just keep pretending that I'm your son? You are my son. One of just an amazingly performed scene by Kevin Costner and the kid. I can't remember the kid's name, but in the scene, it's absolutely wonderful and glorious. And it's just more people need to give that movie another shot because I love it. Rob, what's your favorite movie out of Man of Steel? What's your favorite moment, I should say, out of Man of Steel?
I have to say it's a quick moment, but it's the moment where he's floating in the ocean after he's rescued everyone off the oil derrick and the whales are swimming by him. He's just floating in because it was such a lyrical moment, and it was a quiet moment that to me shows that Superman Kal-El he just found out he doesn't even know he's Kal-El yet, but he's embracing the world. I mean, only Superman could be suspended in the ocean as a whale glides by, and it was just this lyrical superhero moment that I loved, that you didn't see. Other superhero movies wouldn't have taken the time to put that in there, and it's a brief moment, but for me it was a real sense of wonder, and that's what the character of Superman has always brought to me.
All right, well said. Next one up, Tommy Woodward writes, got my job back at the amusement park where Us was filmed. Nice. Glad my doppelganger didn't screw things up for me. Can I just say for a second, I was really enjoying Us. I thought their ending made no sense. And don't go, John, you didn't get. No, I got it. Yeah, I fully understood the ending. It just made no sense when you really sat down and thought about it. It made no sense. And I still enjoyed the movie. Lupita Nyong'o was incredible in it, but yeah, I just thought Get Out was better. I just thought his other film was much, much better. That's all. But I'm glad you got your job back, and hopefully your doppelganger didn't ruin things too much. Aviel Levenstein writes, if you could go back in time, what would you do to save Movie Talk? Take it to your channel after AMC Movie News shut down. Request more control from Complex. Anything else? Great discussion with Mark. Bring on the filthy. Well, I mean, my options were very, very limited. You have to understand that my options were very, very limited. I could not leave AMC. The incompetent jackasses who are the HR department at AMC theaters, and that's just my opinion of them. I'm sure other people have their own opinions. Made it absolutely impossible for me to stay. There was no way I was staying at that company. And I still have a deep love for the company as a whole. Everybody, I've talked about that many times. I have a deep love overall for AMC as an overall company. But their incompetent squad of ass clowns that run their HR department made it impossible for me to stay. So I was leaving. I didn't have the option of taking AMC at that time. It was not until after I let AMC know that I was leaving. It wasn't until a few weeks after that. And I had fielded some offers for different things, that talking with one of the executives, who I still communicate with, by the way, I was talking with one of the executives at AMC. And when I mentioned that I had picked, that I believe I had picked that I was going to go to Complex and start up a video division for Collider Video. It is then that the AMC executive kind of came with the idea, well, listen, we've made the decision that without you there, we're going to close down AMC Movie News, which was news to me. I had no idea. I felt good about leaving because we had a terrific team there. They were going to be able to run it great for years to come. But that's when they had told me that they were going to shut down AMC Movie News. And that's when the idea came out in my discussions with the executive that, what if you took the Movie News and Movie Talk team over with you to Collider? I approached Complex. I said, what would you think about just transferring it all over? And so then I put the Complex head execs and the execs at AMC in touch with each other to work out the details, and they did. It really was the only thing I could do, because leaving AMC, I couldn't just take Movie Talk with me. That wasn't an option. It belonged to AMC. Even when AMC said they were going to close the doors on it, I didn't have the option of just bringing them with me over to my own channel because I didn't have any money to pay anybody. I couldn't take a staff of, I can't remember, we had a staff of like 18 people at the time. I didn't have the staff money to pay one. I didn't have the money to pay me. So that wasn't an option. Honestly, there is nothing I really could have done differently. There's nothing I really could have done differently. It was what it was, and it kind of edited the way it did. And it's unfortunate, it's sad, but all you can do now is look forward and move on. And again, I thought Mark Fernandez did a very good job when he was on this show, better articulating and explaining why they've done certain things that they've done and what his vision is to move forward. And I thought that was really good of him to do. And that's where we are, but really not a lot else I could do. Anyway, need to move on. Thank you for asking. This is something I could spend an hour talking on, but we need to move on. We've got other things to get to. All right. Next one up comes to us from effin' Catalina Wine Mixer. One of the great lines from Step Brothers. Hey, John and crew. Any stories from the world of pro wrestling that you think would make a good movie? Mine would either be the Montreal Screwjob or a Vince McMahon biopic. He would never give up the rights, but one can dream. Well, really the only real story, you just mentioned the ones, like either a Vince McMahon biopic, which has been whispered about and talked about for a lot of years, or the infamous Montreal Screwjob. I mean, yeah, you could do a biopic story on Andre the Giant, which would be fascinating, but who plays Andre the Giant, which would be fascinating. There's other smaller things as well, like the Monday Night Wars. Monday Night Wars could be one, the battle between WCW Nitro and WWE Monday Night Raw. That could be an interesting one. There's a great documentary online about that. By the way, it's called The Monday Night Wars. You should check it out. That could be interesting, but would also be very ambitious. The one to tell, though, is the Montreal Screwjob one. That's the movie to make. But whether it ever will happen and the rights get there, that's up for debate. All right. Megan Cepeda writes and sends in $50. Hey, listen, so those of you who don't know, when you send in a $50 one, $50 or more, we answer it here, but then I'll also make a standalone video of it as well a little bit later. So Megan writes in, and first of all, Megan, thank you for supporting the channel on that level. Hi, Bud Light. Hi. Bud Light ended Dilly Dilly, and I'm disappointed. Going off the original ad, I think most people thought they would feature the Dilly Dilly guy. The night was garbage. The King was okay. Is there a film equivalent to this? Is there a film equivalent to that? I don't know if there's a single film, Rob, that has that equivalency. Obviously, franchises. Like, Star Wars moves on from the original trilogy and things like that. But listen, with the Dilly Dilly guy, you could only ride that for so long. And what you want to do is change something before it becomes tired, not wait until it becomes tired and overrun and then change it. You want to change it before it gets tired out. I thought they carried the Dilly Dilly thing as long as they could. But I'll tell you what, one of the most brilliant ads I've ever seen, Rob, was, I believe it was a Super Bowl ad, where they did a crossover ad of Bud Light with the Bud Knight and Game of Thrones.
Right.
Do you remember that? That was like one of the most brilliant things ever. So I don't know. How would you respond to this question from Megan?
God, dude, it's a very difficult thing. I mean, I've always been fascinated. Like when Isaiah Mustafa was the "Look at me, I'm on a horse" when he was doing hits.
with the Old Spice, being the Old Spice guy.
And they started to. He was combining. He was crossing over just the other day, recently with a different ad, and I've always found that to be sort of. It's interesting. I don't know, man. It's a tough call when you're. Can you imagine if you're a company and you've got a spokesperson that people love, but you've decided the time has come? To make that leap, that's a risky leap, man, in terms of coming up with something new. I don't know. It would scare the heck out of me if I was supposed to do something like that.
All right, let's move on here. Where are we at here? Murray Reich writes, it's not Ravens country anymore. What a shocker. Derrick Henry had a hell of a game. Listen, I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people who lost a lot of money in Vegas when the Tennessee Titans beat the Baltimore Ravens, who were the odds-on favorite to not win that game, but to win the Super Bowl. A lot of people, Murray, lost a lot of money. I would have been one of them. If I had put money on that game, I would have been one of the people, and what a great game plan they brought in there. It was shocking and wonderful television and real human drama to watch unfold. It was a great underdog story. All right, an anonymous viewer writes in, with the very high wages for some stars, The Rock 20 million, Jennifer Lawrence 15, how can Knives Out budget is only 40 million with all these A-list stars? Well, they're not all A-list stars. I mean, some of them are very well-known names, but they're not all A-list stars. And listen, a lot of times actors will take lower than their standard thing. If they want to be in a film, if they really want to be in a film, they're just going to have to accept taking a lower salary. Well, I'm going to have you, I need to step away from the machine for a second, so I'm going to throw this over to you. Can you talk for a minute about, how can a film like this, with stars, paychecks being as high as they are and all this kind of stuff, how can films like Knives Out even pull off something like this?
You mean in terms of their budget? Well,
with budget and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave it to you to carry on. I'll be back in just a minute.
Look, what people don't understand is, look, money is great, but also actors, just like anybody else, want to be in great movies. And there's something called favored nations. Now, I don't know about the cast for Knives Out, but a favored nations a favored nations film is when all of your cast agrees to work for the same amount of money because they just want to be in the movie. Now or they might have points or something like that. And with a cast like the cast of Knives Out, I would imagine that they were doing it for favored nations. Maybe not, but I think for the most part they would. And it allows actors to be in a prestige project, and that's like Woody Allen movies, but with Knives Out, a prestige project where everybody gets to work with a great filmmaker like Rian Johnson. But I think actors want to work with other great actors. They like the script, so everybody agrees to work. Favored nation, so there's no resentment with the actors. And if you listen to any interview with those cast members, they talked about they were working in this house for a long time, and they had this small green room downstairs. And for them, they had an incredible experience, and it didn't take them out of circulation for very long because it didn't take that long to make the film. So a movie like Knives Out, basically one location. The movie itself was not that expensive, which allows them to make the favored nations pot, all the actors getting a decent paycheck, but they did it for the project. They did it to work with those other actors. And look at the response. By being in a movie like Knives Out, everyone loves that film. It's done very well worldwide. You get to work with Rian Johnson. All those actors had a great acting experience with everybody else. They made some decent money. They had a great time, and they came out okay. And it was something that it was a great decision to make. But that's how you do that. You have a great project. All the actors work with favored nations, so everybody's making the same amount of money. Now, I don't know if that's the case for that movie, but I would assume it is, and that's how a film like that can get made.
All right, thanks for answering that. And listen, that, by the way, speaking of budget, we've gone over the allotted budgeted time for Robert Meyer Burnett. He's got other things he needs to run and do. Rob, thanks for being here and sharing your incredible wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. Director of Free Enterprise, producer of the Agent Cody Banks films, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you in the meantime online?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or, of course, my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
All right. Thanks a lot for being here, man. And we will, of course, see you again here on the John Campea Show tomorrow, my friend.
I can't wait. What a great time.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. It's always great having him here. But we got like another half hour, so let's keep powering through these questions that you guys have sent in. And we're going to continue on with things with GQ, who writes, "Let your chaos explode. Chills. Hashtag The Wisher." I loved that moment. That was a great moment. It was set up through numbers of episodes, all for the payoff of that one moment, and it was a great moment, and I got chills too when she said it. All right, Jonathan writes, my quick movie review of Just Mercy, an emotionally charged courtroom drama with excellent performances. I teared up during one particular death and the ending. 1917 was my number 5, but this one, Michael B., Jordan, and Fox were fantastic. It gets preachy sometimes with A+. I loved the movie. I was very late to the party on Just Mercy. I ended up really loving it. It's not in my top 5. I'll be honest with you. It's not in my top 5, but you're right. The performances were fantastic. Michael B. Jordan was great. Jamie Foxx was incredible. I'm a sucker for a good courtroom drama. This thing absolutely lived up to the hype, and I agree with you, Jonathan. All right. Min Tran writes, "Oh man, you know what? I'm going to remove my headphones now since Rob's not here. I don't need my headphones to hear Robert, so I'm just going to do that right now. All right, Min Tran writes, oh man, I think she's going into labor. How can I help when I'm supposed to kill my own father? It's a little dark. I'll be honest with you, that sounds a little bit familiar, but I'm jammed. I'm jammed on that one. How can I help when I'm supposed to kill my own father? I'm a little bit jammed on that one. If you guys know it in the comments section, write it out into the comments section. I'd like to see that. All right. 1917 is my favorite, writes. One of three. The Witches is getting a remake. Yes, it is. This movie scared me as a kid with Angelica Houston. Very curious about Robert Zemeckis taking on this story. There we go. We don't often get a family film that's both comedic and horrifying. Witches hunting and eating kids, yike. Anne Hathaway plays the Grand High Witch. Eek is a perfect casting. She's so beautiful. We all know something scary is lurking under the mask. Can't wait to see that design. Could be one of the biggest horror transformations like Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. Combining the talents of Ronald Dahl, Hathaway, Zemeckis directing, and Guillermo del Toro / Alfonso Cuarón producing, might be looking at a nice box office family hit for October. Hope this film scares kids like the original. They've got my ticket. And we talked a lot about this the other day. And, I went on about how great Anne Hathaway is. Here's the thing. Horror can be for kids. Kids like being scared. Now, you want to be careful. Absolutely, 1917. You want to be careful about the method you're employing to scare kids. You don't want to traumatize kids. You don't want to do all that kind of stuff. But I absolutely believe, I think Goosebumps is a good example of that. Now, Goosebumps is also very silly, but still, the principle is there. I think, look, we go to movies to have an experience. And I think kids love getting a great experience in a movie just as much as anybody else. And I think kids can embrace and enjoy kid-level, sensitive, properly designed horror for kids. I really do. Kids like a roller coaster and being scared as much as anybody else. I think there's room for stuff like that. Now, how far does this particular incarnation under Robert Zemeckis go? I'm not really sure at this point. None of us are. But I absolutely believe that if they want to make a really great, family-friendly, kind of scary film that also scares kids, but doesn't traumatize kids, I think you can do that, and I think there's room there for that. And this may go way beyond that, may be more adult in nature. I'm not really sure at this point, but I think there's definitely stuff that you can do there for that. All right, let's move on here. We are up to Marie Seifring, who writes, hi, Rob. Just missed him. Sorry about the Seahawks. Yeah, he's bummed about that. Both of the Sunday games were wild, and the Ravens didn't make it either. Kansas City and the 49ers both had good days. Who are you and John following now? Ooh, it's a good question. I mean, that was some terrific games this weekend. There were some absolutely fantastic, terrific games. I cannot help but look, I'm now, out of all the teams left, my favorite team out of all the teams left is probably the 49ers. So I'm going to be maybe a little bit of cheering for them, but I cannot help but be in love with the Cinderella story of this year, and that's the Tennessee Titans. First, they knocked off the defending Super Bowl champions. Then they knocked off the presumptive team that was going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're this little, and then halfway through the season, they weren't even going to make the playoffs. Halfway through the season, it didn't even look like the Titans were going to make the playoffs. Then all of a sudden, Tannehill comes in, Henry turns it up to another gear, and here we are. So I cannot help Marie, but even though the 49ers are my favorite team that's left, I cannot help but fall in love with this little Cinderella story that is the Tennessee Titans this year. It's really, really intriguing. Anyway, thanks for sending that in. All right, the Dan Man writes, I wrote in the other day regarding the Sienna Miller film American Woman. I remember that. I hadn't even heard of it yet. It's available on demand everywhere, and it's actually going to premiere on HBO 2 out west this Sunday morning at 3:15 a.m. You asked where to find it, and I appreciate it. So it is an on-demand thing. It's not on a free streaming thing, but if it's going to pop up on HBO, I think I can then grab that on HBO Go, if I'm not mistaken. I think I should be able to pick that up on there. But yes, I am fast because I don't even recall hearing about it. So I love the fact that you sent that in. And one of the great things about people sending in recommendations isn't that the recommendations just for me. I often hear from everybody else watching the show, hey, somebody on the show recommended this and I went and checked it out. You're actually recommending it to everybody, and that's wild. So thanks for the follow-up on that, Dan, man. I really appreciate that. An anonymous viewer writes, I was rooting for your team, Rob. I don't know if you mean about his managed team or about the Seattle Seahawks, but I'm always rooting for Rob. All right, Dumbledore Calrissian writes, "Hey, John, I've been giving A-List a try, but I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, where we only have one AMC theater. Unfortunately, this one isn't impressive at all. We'll most likely stick with Cinemark, with it being hands down the best theater around." And listen, it doesn't matter how good the deal is if you're not getting the experience that you want. Because listen, I could go and get a cheeseburger at McDonald's, or I could pay $3 or $4 or $5 more to get that a burger at Red Robin, right? I actually really like Red Robin's burgers anyway. Yes, the best deal is that McDonald's cheeseburger, but I'm going to have a better experience, and I'm okay to spend a couple more bucks if I'm going to get the better experience. The A-List is the best deal. That's the best deal. But if the theater specific to your location does not give you the movie-going experience that you want, then it being the better deal doesn't help a lot. If Cinemark is giving you the better experience, and Cinemark has their own movie club membership, it's not as good as A-List, but okay, then we don't mind as consumers spending a couple of extra bucks if we get the better experience. So Dumbledore, hey, listen, as much as I love A-List, if you're not getting the movie-going experience you want at that AMC theater, then you go to another theater. That's the great thing about having choice. I'm lucky. I've got 3 fantastic AMC theaters, all within a 15-minute walk of where I live, and they're all great, so I'm very, very lucky. But if yours doesn't give you the experience, then you hightail it over to the next best thing and you go to the better experience, even if it means you got to pay a couple extra bucks. I completely support your decision. An anonymous viewer writes, "Hey, Rob, what time are the Seahawks playing next week?" Oh, that's mean. I'm glad Rob's not here for that. Normally, I'm sorry that Rob isn't here to take questions. That's just mean. I'm glad he wasn't here for you to hurt his feelings like that. As me and Rob both have our teams out now, so there you go. Murray Reich writes, "Hey, I saw your tweet regarding you feeling a little better regarding the Patriots losing against the Titans. I just want to say they still had no excuse not securing a first-round bye. Give all you needed. Guys, all you needed to do was beat the effing lowly Dolphins." But I mean, that's all hindsight. Look, at the end of the day, I believe the New England Patriots finished at 11-4. They finished at 11-4. Or 12-4, I should say. They finished at 12-4. 12-4. Let's not pretend like, oh, they blew it. Their regular season ended, and they ended their regular season with a 12-4 record. Listen, the Baltimore Ravens lost to the lowly Cleveland Browns at one point during the season. I mean, that's what happens. You lose games. In the NFL, unless you're the New England Patriots from a few years ago, when you go through the regular season, you're going to lose a game or two. And it doesn't matter which one of the 4 you lost and who you lost them to. They lost 4 games. That wasn't enough for a first-round bye. But I'll tell you what, I don't think they were going to beat the Ravens anyway. I just don't think New England was going to beat the Ravens because I've been saying forever they weren't going to make it to the final thing. But it's not like they had some bad record, and as a result of your bad record, you don't get a first-round bye. They were 12-4. Who they lost their games to is irrelevant. At the end of the day, they were 12-4. It wasn't quite good enough to get the first-round bye. But it became inconsequential because at some point they were going to run into the Ravens and they were going to get beat up by the Ravens. So there's that. All right. Murray also writes, "So since you are worth between 5 and 80 million, to be specific, the Google report says I'm worth 87 million. I was wondering, can you sponsor me for tickets to the Super Bowl? Do a nice friend a big favor, will you?" Man, listen, if I had 87 million, I would own 500 season tickets to, the Patriots. I'd fly down on my private jet every weekend to watch the games play, and I'd have a big section just for John Campea Show viewers to all go to the Super Bowl together. Unfortunately, that report on Google is a little bit off. All right, Ben Elman writes, "I saw 1917 yesterday at my local AMC. Only 10 minutes of trailers. Nice. Was really impressed as I'm used to seeing up to 30 minutes of trailers. Hope that the 10 minutes is being the new standard. Listen, they've got to change. We talk about it all the time, Ben. This whole thing about you tell a customer movie starts at 7 and then it doesn't actually start till 7:32 or 7:28 or whatever. That's BS. It should not happen. Hopefully that becomes a new trend. But I don't see them doing it, but keep me informed. If you see the trend keep going down, I want to know about it. All right. BC33 writes, one of two. Michael Giacchino has done the scores for Doctor Strange, the two Holland Spider-Man films, and the two Jurassic World movies. With this in mind, Doctor Strange 2 comes out on May 7th, 2021. Jurassic World 3 is June 11th, 2021. The Batman is June 25th, 2021. And Spider-Man 3 releases July 16th, 2021. Giacchino's already confirmed for the Batman. Which other projects do you think he will be the one he picks to do? Because there's no way he can do all four. No, you're right. There's no way he can do all four. But listen, it's impossible to say which ones he'll do based on the movie. It's really more based on his working relationship with the directors, the studios, which ones he might have a personal connection to, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to be, well, I love this movie, so I'm going to do that movie. I think it's really going to be about more whatever kind of specific relationship he has or can develop with the individual directors. Because that's going to be his primary point of contact, right? And since I really don't know any of his particular relationships with the directors, it's impossible for me to say at this point which ones he will or will not end up doing. The one clear thing, though, BC, is that you're absolutely 1,000% right. There's no way you can do all those. And I think one or two of them already have other conductors or other composers named, I think. But you are 1,000% right about that. He can't do them all. But it's impossible to say at this one, even to wildly guess as to which ones they may be. I'll tell you what, though, it is going to be fascinating to see which ones he hooks himself up to and how many. Because I don't think he's going to want to overstretch himself either. Because, I don't think he wants a repeat situation like he had with Rogue One. He had a very limited amount of time to work on that thing. He took some heat for it, all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's ever going to want to put himself in that position again. So he's not going to overextend himself. So let's keep our eye on that situation. Excellent question, BC. I love that you're going in there. All right. Alex Haina writes, any idea why the like/dislike threshold on Rotten Tomatoes is 6 to 10 rather than 5 out of 10? When measuring something subjective like that, shouldn't the middle of the road be the quantifiable difference between liking and not? I honestly don't know. I don't know. It's not, to me, it's not that big of a deal. I guess they're thinking, if you're right on the middle of the line, we'll take that as a negative. That's all. I mean, because if 5 out of 10, that is neither positive nor negative. That's literally right on the razor's wire. So if you got to pick which way to go, they go the more conservative route and saying, okay, so a 5 out of 10, if you're right on the fence about whether this movie was enjoyable or not enjoyable, and you're right on the fence at 5, we'll take that as a negative. Because you got to go one way or the other. You can't make an argument for making it a positive score. You can't make a lot of arguments for making it a negative. I like the idea, if you got to lean one way or the other, you lean towards sitting right on the fence is not an endorsement of the movie. Leaning on the positive side, that's an endorsement of the movie. But if you're right on the fence, Rotten Tomatoes seems to say, we don't interpret that as an endorsement of the film. Therefore, since we only deal with yay or nay, yay or nay, then we're going to consider that as a negative. I think it's probably the right decision, personally, but that's just kind of how I see it. Who knows, though? Who knows how the inner workings of Rotten Tomatoes works, other than the people who work there? Michael Lagrange writes, do you think Cinemark will eventually add an unlimited plan to their membership? I love it, don't get me wrong, but it does make me wish AMC had a theater near me so I could save money with how many movies I go see every month. Well, the reality is Cinemark's plan does save you money every month. Maybe not as much as AMC's does, but Cinemark's plan, if you join their movie club, you will save money. Again, not as much as, say, AMC, but you will save money. I don't know why they would switch to an unlimited plan. I mean, look, you're going to go to Cinemark because there's not an AMC near you. Therefore, Cinemark offering you any kind of a discount is kind of just a good thing. So I don't see why they would need to be competitive with like AMC or Regal if they're not right by their theaters. And if it's working for them, listen, Cinemark's going to take a long time to look at and evaluate how their movie plan is working. And if people are responding to it and using it and it's making them money, why would they change it? Right? Why would they change it? So let's not fail to be grateful that a theater chain like Cinemark has a movie plan that if you go to a lot of movies, you can sign up for, and it will save you money every single month that you use it. Let's not fail to be grateful for that just because somebody else might be doing something a little bit better in some other city. So I still think it's great what they do. And I don't see them changing it unless, again, they study the results and they're seeing they're not getting favorable results. But from what I'm hearing, they are getting favorable results. So let's see how this all evolves as we move forward. All right, Timbula the Spider Monkey writes, I'm a massive fan of Knights of the Old Republic, but I don't want Revan or Malak to be in any new Star Wars if they do indeed go back 400 years. Why? My favorite character in all of Star Wars was Thrawn, was until they put him in Rebels. I was not a fan of that. I like Thrawn in Rebels, but you got to understand, the expanded universe stuff, the legend stuff is not canon. It's not canon. So if you're not a fan of the Thrawn they used in Rebels, and I am, but that doesn't change at all those characters in the EU material that you know and love. It doesn't change them at all. And if they do them again in a new movie and do them differently, okay. And you'll either like or not like it, and that's fine, but it doesn't change the material that you fell in love with those characters in the first place. Now, I don't think they're doing Revan or Malak, or I don't think they will, but it's possible. And if they do, they will be different from the ones that we know from the Legends material. And that's okay. Because if they give us new great characters, then great. We get to enjoy these characters in a new format. If we don't like this incarnation of them, that's okay. We still have that original material that we love them in so much. So I really don't see there being a downside. Again, Tumbula, I think you're safe. I don't think they're going to go that way. But if they do, I think it's all right. We'll have to wait and see. All right, Gabriel Reed writes, where are we? Did you get a chance to see The Nightingale? My God, what an impactful movie. Has my favorite performance of the year in the lead, Aisling Françoisi, and is my fourth favorite of 2019. It's a hard watch like Schindler's List, but is one of the best films of the year. I do not believe I saw that one, to be honest. I remember somebody else bringing that up. I think that is one that I didn't see. I will double check. Where are we at here? The Nightingale. Yeah, that's right. I remember looking this one up, and this was one I did not see. This is one I did not see. So I remember looking this up because Sam Claflin's in this as well. Somebody else suggested to it. I didn't get around. So at some point, I'm probably going to have to watch this one, Gabriel. Thank you for the recommendation. All right. Mandalorian of Gondor writes, hey, John, 2019 was an amazing year for film, and I'm happy with all the nominees, but I want to give some recognition to Shia LaBeouf. Peanut Butter Falcon and Honey Boy were two of my favorite films last year and were masterful films. Highly recommend you watch. You know, it's funny because I've got screeners for both of those here, and a bunch of us, we had some friends over last night, and we were talking specifically about Shia this year. If you had to say, if there was a category for actor with the best year, an actress with the best year. The actress with the best year probably goes to Scarlett Johansson because she ended up with 2 Academy Award nominations, one for Best Lead Actress for Marriage Story, one for Best Supporting Actress for Jojo Rabbit. I think even though he got no acting nominations, I think if there was an Academy Award for actor with the best year, you might have to consider Shia LaBeouf the frontrunner. His performances in both Peanut Butter Falcon and Honey Boy were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I thought his one in Honey Boy was very different. I thought the one in Peanut Butter Falcon was my favorite performance of his, but he was wonderful in both of those. What a great year. Of course, both films that not a ton of people saw, so not a lot of people will realize this was a great year for Shia LaBeouf, but absolutely it's well worth pointing that one out. Thanks for pointing that out, Mandalorian of Gondor. All right, James writes, where are we at? My wife decoded the username, yeet my daughter for a rock, yeet, new word meaning throw, my daughter for a rock, Thanos throws Gamora for the Soul Stone. Yeah. She's a true cool nerd and lit up when she heard you say yeet last night, LOL. I had no idea. I've never heard of that. See, I learn something new every day doing this damn show. I learn new stuff every day. I had no idea but that could be a very cryptic but clever reference to Thanos. That would be interesting. Thank you for the little, what's the name of the book? Thank you for the little Da Vinci Code decoding there. I appreciate that, James, and to your wife. All right, Adam Frasher writes, fun fact, Jason Momoa and Brandon Routh played soccer in Norwalk. Really? Iowa. So at one point, the Norwalk high school soccer team had both Aquaman and Superman. I had no idea. I didn't know Jason Momoa went to high school in the States. I really didn't. Well, on the mainland, I didn't have any idea he did that. Were they on the same year too? I don't know what the age difference is between Brandon Routh and Jason Momoa, to be honest with you, but that would be a hell of a high school picture. That would be a hell of a high school picture going, yeah. What did you end up doing after graduating? Like Momoa and Brandon Routh, what did you do? That would be an interesting one. Interesting factoid there, Adam. Thanks for sharing. Timbula the Spider Monkey writes, much to Rob's chagrin, I'm an Aussie 49ers fan. Now that the Seahawks are gone, I can't help but think the Chiefs have it in the bag. I'd love for my 49ers to prove me wrong, but I'm already happy and super surprised by the season they've had so far. I'll tell you what, after watching what the Tennessee Titans are doing right now, because you know who's not great against the run? The Kansas City Chiefs. You know who's great at doing the run? The Tennessee Titans. So, and here's the thing, Couch Coward, we're saying this exact same thing, but when you can control the run, you control the game. When you control the run, you control the game. So don't just think the Chiefs are getting a free pass into the Super Bowl this year. I mean, they got to play the team now that just knocked off the defending Super Bowl champions and the huge favorite to win the Super Bowl this year in the Baltimore Ravens. Because I think the Ravens would have beat up the Chiefs. I really do. So don't write them off just yet, Timbula. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, so what you're saying, John, is that We Got This Covered doesn't have it covered. Indeed, that's right. Look, I'm not saying that website doesn't have some great content. What I'm saying is never pay attention to any of the breaking stories that they report on. I just don't pay attention to them. All right, Jared McBride writes, it was a great weekend of NFL games. It really was. My 49ers are back in the conference championship game since 2013. The Tennessee Titans are looking good right now. Yup, and it's going to be incredible games next week, man. The Chiefs against the Titans cannot miss. Green Bay against the 49ers. Green Bay is firing on all cylinders right now. That's going to be a tough game. It's going to be excellent football, Jared, this coming weekend. Excellent football. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I'm not going to watch the live show for a while for work reasons, but I hope you enjoyed the Oscar nominations announcements. Hope the good guys get it. Well, I think there were some really, really great nominations this year. Not a lot of big surprises. Not any big, obvious, what I would call definitive, just blatant snubs. I think there are some people I would have picked for a nomination that didn't get it, but those people probably weren't runaway favorites to win anyway, so I don't know that I'd call them a blatant snub. It was a pretty solid, modestly predictable award nomination list. And I gotta say, as a film fan, I'm pretty happy with the nominations. A few things I would have done differently, but overall pretty happy. Slevenbeam82 writes, I enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I don't feel it's as good as the predictions say. I agree. I think it's one of Quentin Tarantino's lesser films, to be honest with you. But hey, a lot of people love it, and the performances in it are incredible, by the way. In my opinion, Joker wins Best Score. I'm also behind on 19 movies to make any bold predictions. The Farewell and Marriage Story deserve to win something. Agree? Well, look, there's no such thing as deserve to win something. There's no such thing as that. You need to be in a category that you deserve to be in that category. And then you need to be better than all four other nominees. There's no such thing as deserve an Oscar. Deserve to win something. There's no such thing as that. Because if The Farewell, which did get a couple of nominations, I believe, if The Farewell is nominated in a category, but it's up against other things that were clearly better than it in that category, then The Farewell deserves to win nothing. Marriage Story, I mean, Adam Driver, maybe. Best Picture is a possibility, but again, it's not that you deserve to win something. You have to be the best compared to the other contenders in your category. And so, yeah, the whole thing about you deserve to win something, there's no such thing as that. That's why winning an Oscar is probably the most difficult thing to do, is to win an Oscar. And, hey, it is what it is. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes, Slevin. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I'm surprised at you, John. How could you not recognize one of your favorite movies, The Greatest Showman? Don't you want to get away from the same old part you got to play? Because I got what you need. Oh, yeah, that's from the other side. That's from the song The Other Side. Come and take a ride on the other side. Well, listen, there's a lot of movies with a lot of lines. I don't always remember every single one. 50 Shades also writes, I really love "Oh, Good for You" clip. Cody Hall used to play it on Collider Live. Every time someone mentioned something that happened to them, it was hilarious. And it's true that there was a part of Bale's method acting, or did he really lose it that day? No, he lost it that day. Christian Bale had an absolute meltdown on set. And it's gone down in Hollywood infamy. And it really is something you should listen to. Christian Bale, I mean, I thought it was unwarranted, but listen, everybody has a bad day. And I've never appreciated the meltdown Bale had, but everybody has a bad day. And I just think that was Bale's bad day. And unfortunately I believe it was the cinematographer or one of his grips, took the brunt of it that day, unfortunately. AJ Luna writes, which is your first comic and your favorite run? Well, my overall favorite comic story ever is The Age of Apocalypse. I just love that storyline. It is my absolute favorite storyline of all time. I think the first comic I ever got was Wolverine versus Hulk. One of the many times that too, but one of my very first comics that I ever had as a kid, it was Wolverine fighting Hulk on it. And I think one of the second ones I ever got was Thing versus Hulk. I think that was up there too. So those are a couple of the first ones I ever had. But my all-time favorite story run ever is the Age of Apocalypse story run. It's just one of the most brilliant things ever. And one of the reasons why I was kind of disappointed with the X-Men Apocalypse movie, because they kind of teased a little bit of Age of Apocalypse, but it wasn't really Age of Apocalypse, which is perfectly fine. But that's my all-time favorite storybook comic run. All right. Let's see. Jin Darren writes, has the Star Wars sequel trilogy changed your mind on the prequels? Which is better or worse? Oh, no films change my mind about other films. Each film needs to be looked at and evaluated by its own merits and doesn't affect how I view other films. The Star Wars sequels are better than the prequels. Now, that's a subjective statement. Everybody's going to have their own opinion about that. Since you're asking me, it's not even close. The sequels are much better. Like, I love The Force Awakens. I love that movie. I like The Last Jedi. I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. So that is by far ahead of hated it with the prequels. Although with the prequels, they do have some redeeming qualities. I'll talk all day about the individual elements in the prequels that I enjoyed, whether it's, the Qui-Gon, Darth Maul fight, whether it's Yoda jumping around fighting. The pod race, I think, is an amazing sequence and scene. There's definitely some good things in Revenge of the Sith, but yeah, easily for me, the sequel trilogy is much, much better than the prequels, in my opinion. All right. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, just writing in with tons of optimism that the Morbius trailer comes out looking promising. This was sent in a few hours ago before the trailer came out. This is being submitted prior to the trailer going live, but fingers crossed it comes out and creates excitement. Plus the leaked image of him looks cool. And of course, the leaked image was used in the trailer. Listen, when this show's done, I got to go back and watch that trailer about 8 more times. I'm really, really happy with the trailer. And part of that enthusiasm was because I didn't know if this was just going to be an unmitigated mess. I really didn't. And the trailer shows a lot of promise, and I'm super happy to see that. I think it looks really, really solid. Then the teasing, then maybe it could be part of the MCU. I mean, what? Michael Keaton popping up in what? I mean, there's a lot here to digest. And I think Rob and I will probably talk a little bit more about this Morbius situation tomorrow once we have a chance to really digest more about what we're looking at. I think there's a lot of ground to cover there, dude. Anyway, Jeremy Shibasu writes, Jeremy Shibasu, but John, I want the power converters. I mean, one of the worst lines in one of the greatest movies of all time. But I was going to Tashi Station, he had some power converters. But it tells us a lot about the character and where he was at the time. Jeremy Shabashir then writes, do you guys do work you guys do for us is remarkable. Although work you guys do for us is remarkable, thanks. It is our privilege and honor. Thank you so much for being a part of it and being here and giving us a reason to do the show at all in the first place, Jeremy. And thank you so much for supporting the content that you enjoy. We appreciate it very, very much. So thanks for that, dude. All right. Brian Meadows writes, I'm stationed on an Air Force base in South Korea, and I go to the movies often. Awesome, man. Their pre-show includes trailers, and the only thing after the start time is the national anthem. Much better than the 10 to 30 minutes after the start time in the U.S. Still, I miss AMC. And listen, that's the way it should be. If you say the movie starts at 7, then from 6:30 to 7, show all the trailers and commercials you want. Hell, I don't even mind a couple of trailers at 7, 2 or 3. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But you're right, man. This 30 minutes of trailers, it's just got to stop. You told me the movie's starting at 7. Now you're not starting it till like 30 minutes later. That's unacceptable. I didn't pay you all that money to buy my ticket for your theater so I could sit down and watch ads for 25 to 30 minutes. It's got to change. And listen, Brian, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate that. And I hope you get to enjoy all the movies that you do while you're over there, my friend. Thanks a lot for writing in, dude. All right. Sammy Alrari writes, with Titanic earning way more money at the box office than Return of the King, doesn't that make it a greater achievement considering it also has 11 Oscars? No. People aren't listening to me when I explain the situation. I believe, by the way, making money is an achievement. If that were the case, then the Transformers movies are great achievements. They're not. I said, when you sit down and look at each individual craft that went into it, I have never seen one film so excel at all the individual disciplines at once that brought it together to make a sum that was truly greater than its whole. When you look at the costume designing of that movie, when you look at the visual effects of that movie, when you look at the screenplay of that movie and the performances and the direction and the makeup and the score and the original songs, when you look at all that kind of stuff, to me, again, this is a subjective statement, so you may disagree and that's perfectly fine. But to me, I've never seen a movie bring all of that together in one package with such huge success in each of those individual elements that I've ever seen before. And yes, there are 2 other films that have also won 11 Academy Awards. That's the all-time record. No film has ever won 12. But Return of the King, Titanic, and I just mentioned what the other one was. Why am I freezing on the? Was it Ben-Hur? Was it? I can't remember. There's a third film that won 11 Academy Awards. That's the thing, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about when I say the greatest achievement. And that's what I mean when I talk about it in that sense, Sammy. All right. Esteval Garcia writes, no new content on Disney Plus is pushing me to cancel it. Yeah. Listen, I'll tell you what. I'm starting to think it was a mistake to not have something lined up and have another bullet in the chamber for like within 3 or 4 weeks after Mandalorian finished. They probably should have had another big high profile thing ready to come out of the barrel shortly, not immediately the next week, but shortly after Mandalorian. I think that might have been a mistake on their part. Not that you had to launch with Mandalorian and 3 MCU shows all at the same time. No. But I think they probably should have had one of these highly anticipated, where people are excited about pieces of content. They probably should have had something ready within a few weeks after Mandalorian. It probably would have been better because I think that was a mistake on their part. Jeremy also writes, Klaus got an Oscar nomination. Yeah, a lot of people are excited about it. I didn't watch it for a long time till a lot of people got me on board. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. I got to tell you, it surprised me got a nomination. A surprise to be sure, but a pleasant one. It was really nice to see. Sharp Pieces writes, Joker is a copy and paste hack job, bottom of the barrel. Well, obviously, you're very, very alone in that opinion. And you're entitled to that opinion. All film is subjective. If that's how you feel about it, that's perfectly fine. But clearly you're in the minority because a lot of fans of art, a lot of film professionals, directors, writers, cinematographers, the Academy, they feel very, very differently than you do. And most of the audience does as well. But that doesn't mean that your opinion is invalid. It's all subjective. If that's how you feel about it, that's how you feel about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you're alone. Alex Pitt writes, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that 1917 wins Best Picture, but it's a very, very close race this year, and I'd be happy with most of them winning. Sad not to see more love for The Farewell, Knives Out, or The Lighthouse. Have a great day, everyone. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see both The Farewell and both The Farewell and Knives Out get a nomination as well, but there are limited numbers of nominees to go around. Lighthouse, I'm perfectly fine with it not getting a Best Picture nomination. I'll be straight up honest with you. I enjoyed the film, but I still walked out going, what the F did I just watch? You know, what the hell was that? I mean, it was riveting, but what the hell was it? The performances were incredible. I'm a little bit surprised, not massively surprised, that neither Pattinson nor Willem Dafoe got nominations for it, because the performances really make that movie. But there it is what it is. I think 1917 has just got all the momentum. I think it takes it. Clay Woodley writes, I love Ford v Ferrari, but I think its chances of winning Best Picture are slim since James Mangold didn't get nominated. Yeah, it is slim. Now remember, Argo won Best Picture without Ben Affleck getting a Best Director nomination. So it's not like we don't have precedent in the last number of years. There is some precedent. But yes, I do think Ford v Ferrari. Listen, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit surprised it even got the nomination. I'm happy for it because it's in my top 10 for sure. It's in my top 5. Oh, no, it just got bumped out of my top 5, but it's in my top 10. So I'm totally pleased to see it get the nomination. But I think, yeah, it's a very, very, very tiny chance that Ford v Ferrari actually wins the Academy Award. John Demoto writes, 2 biggest snubs for me. No Frozen 2 for Best Animated Movie and no Taron Egerton for Best Actor category. Just a really strong year. Again, I cannot consider Taron Egerton a snub because I don't honestly think he deserved the spot. I don't think he deserved the spot. Because when I look at the Best Actor category, and we're looking at, where did he go? Leonardo DiCaprio. I wasn't going to bump Leonardo DiCaprio for Taron Egerton. Taron Egerton was very, very good in Rocketman. Best Actor? I don't think so. I definitely wouldn't bump Adam Driver for him. I definitely wouldn't have bumped Joaquin Phoenix for him. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of you guys didn't watch the movie, but Jonathan Pryce, I ain't bumping Jonathan Pryce from Two Popes for him either. And, to be honest with you, if I was going to knock out, Antonio Banderas, okay? So let's say we were going to knock out Antonio Banderas. I would have given the spot, I wouldn't have given the spot to Taron Egerton. Again, I thought he was very, very good in Rocketman. But I thought Robert De Niro in The Irishman was better. I thought Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems was better. And I thought, I thought Eddie Murphy might have been an outside shot too. So I actually, even if you took out Antonio Banderas, I think there's 3 other guys in line for that spot before Taron Egerton. So, that's the one for me. But listen, that's not to take away from how good Taron Egerton was in Rocketman. I think he really carried that movie. And I thought he did a really, really good job. I just don't think an Oscar nomination worthy performance. That's just me though. That's just me. All right. Kian Shingler writes, as a fellow Brit, please stop guys texting John about Collidergate. Just to clarify, all us Brits are, in fact, called Jack Hind and get a bit Tourette's on Twitter about movie fart jokes. I'm not quite sure what point you're getting at there, Kane, but I appreciate it. Kane also writes, have you seen The Langoliers? Yes, I have. Some of the best CGI you will ever see, though I am torn between which is better, ketchup on eggs or the above. The sarcasm flows, Kian. The sarcasm flows on this fine Monday as we all come back. Thanks for sharing, dude. All right, James Ito writes, hey, John, I surprisingly got all 9 nominations for Best Picture correct. I tweeted them out last night, put Little Women on the list last minute. Didn't think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood could win Best Picture, but now it could with the Critics' Choice Awards. I wouldn't take the Critics' Choice Awards into consideration. It could win because it's got some momentum. Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood, as you know. Hey, listen, that's part of the human thing, right? One of the things that makes us relate and enjoy films is when we find the movie touches our reality. And so all the people in Hollywood who make up the Academy, when they see a movie that really touches on their reality, like any human being watching a movie, that will naturally appeal to them. So I wouldn't say yay or nay for that reason alone, but again, not a lot of surprises with the nominee list, not a lot of surprises. And that's a good thing. But good on you for your picks, James. All right. Raymond Verrata writes, for years, I understand when some actors don't make the cut, I don't consider them as snubs. I don't get it when Scarlett Johansson is nominated in 2 acting categories. I don't dismiss her talent, but it could have gone to another of equal caliber. Well, first of all, there is, it's all subjective, of course. So part of the verbiage that I use, but there is no excuse for her not getting a Best Actress nomination for Marriage Story. That's beyond discussion. That's beyond refute. Now, as far as her Best Supporting Actress nomination, well, who are you going to give it to? There was Annette Bening for The Report, Nicole Kidman maybe for Bombshell. Some people thought maybe Jennifer Lopez in Hustlers, and I liked Hustlers a lot, and I like Jennifer Lopez in it. But Scarlett Johansson's Best Supporting Actress performance in Jojo Rabbit, which I think is the best film of the year, is a superior performance. So It's not about, listen, here's the problem, Raymond. It's not the Oscars' place, and it shouldn't be the Oscars' place to go, well, we already gave one to Scarlett, so let's give it to somebody else. No. That's not how it's supposed to work. How it's supposed to work is you sit in a room and you look at and try to evaluate who was the best. And none of this, well, we think Scarlett Johansson was one of the 5 best performances in a supporting role this year with her role in Jojo Rabbit. But we already gave her a nomination for lead, so let's give her nomination to somebody else. That's not how it's supposed to work. It's merit and merit alone. And if they felt that her supporting performance in Jojo Rabbit is one of the top 5, then you don't give it to somebody else just because she's nominated in another category. It should only ever be about the merit. Just make it about the merit. And if they consider her performance one of the top 5, then you give her the nomination. It's not about, well, we gave her one, so let's give the other one to somebody else. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's called getting a participation ribbon. Yeah, I got nominated for Best Actress, but everybody in the world knows I didn't deserve it. I just got put in there because Scarlett Johansson already had another nomination. That's not how it's supposed to be. So I disagree, Raymond. I disagree. I mean, again, I'm not saying I 100 or 1000% agree with all the Academy's choices, but it needs to be their choices based on what they thought was the best. And if they thought something was the best that I disagree with them, then I'm fine with that. But that's what it needs to be based on. At least that's how I see it at any rate. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Raymond. Collins E writes, Oscar nominee Rian Johnson, The Onion put it best last year. With Knives Out, Rian Johnson finally bounces back from the critically acclaimed $1 billion The Last Jedi. Finally bounces back from the critically acclaimed Last Jedi. First of all, I love The Onion. They speak a lot of truth through sarcasm. It is nice to see Knives Out get that screenplay. It did, of course, get it, right? Yes, it did. It's really nice to see Knives Out, Rian Johnson's screenplay for that. I thought there could have been an argument made for him getting a director nomination. I certainly think there was an argument to be made for Knives Out getting a Best Picture of the Year nomination. It's a marvelous, marvelous film. But yeah, good on him for getting that screenplay nomination. All right, Ivan writes, for me, the only snub this year was Speechless for Best Song. In my opinion, it should have won, and it wasn't even nominated. P.S. Those names in supporting actor category. Well, I mean, the supporting actor category this year is stupid stacked. Now, for those of you wondering about the best song, the best original, which by the way, the best original song is by far the least important of any of the Oscars. It's something that happens in a movie for about 2 minutes. And sometimes it doesn't even happen in a movie. Sometimes it just happens over credits that are playing. But it's something that takes place for 2 minutes in a film. But so it's the least, to me, it's the least important of any of the Oscars. But the best original song categories were I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away from Toy Story 4. That was really nice. I'm Gonna Love Again from Rocket Man. I don't even think that was the best song. Anyway, I'm Standing With You from Breakthrough. Into the Unknown, Frozen 2. And Stand Up from Harriet. Yeah, I loved the Speechless tune. I did. I don't think it should have won. I think it was good, and I think I would have guessed it would have been nominated. To be honest, if I was doing the nominee list, I would have given it a spot. But it wasn't going to win. I honestly think Into the Unknown is going to win, and I think it deserves one. Although I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away is also really, really good. But I think probably Into the Unknown probably wins. But yeah, if I was making the list, I probably would have put Speechless in there. But I don't consider it a hard snub, but that's an interesting one, Ivan. It's an interesting one. All right. James Argenta writes, Black Widow will now have 3 Oscar nominees. I know, listen, it's a common thing now where comic book movies now, so many actors in it, that you're going to get just lots of award-winning actors and award-nominated actors in these movies now. Julius Goodwin writes, do you have a favorite Netflix show or two? Mine are BoJack Horseman, Big Mouth, and Messiah. I can't really think of them off the top of my head. Like, I'm trying to remember. Sometimes I don't even remember which network shows are on. So I would have to think about that, Julius. I don't remember off the top of my head which ones they are. Like, which shows were Netflix. I can't remember which shows were Netflix. I know I watch a lot of shows on Netflix, but I can't remember which ones are which. Sorry about that. I can say, though, I have not seen Messiah, and I'm hearing really, really good things about Messiah. And Corey's been watching, and she's been telling me I need to check that one out, too. So I'm probably going to have to check that one out. So thanks for the recommendation on that. Evelyn Horquera Quiroz, I'm sure I'm butchering your name, Evelyn. Forgive me, I'm terrible with names. Writes, Black Panther won 3 awards last year. Do you think Joker will beat that record for a comic book movie? Best actor and score seem like a lock to win. Oh, do not think for a second that Joaquin Phoenix is a lock to win. Do not, no. I'll tell you right now, Joaquin Phoenix is not a lock to win. Is he one of the front runners? I think so. I think so. But Adam Driver has a lot of heat behind him right now for Marriage Story, and for good reason. Leonardo DiCaprio has a lot of heat behind him in the Academy for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for good reason. Jonathan Pryce is so stupid good in Two Popes, it's mind-boggling. And not enough people are talking about, I think it's because a lot of people still haven't even watched Two Popes. Jonathan Pryce is so good in Two Popes, it defies logic how good he is in it. He's masterful in it. Him and Anthony Hopkins acting side by side in this movie is just such a stupid pleasure to watch. I do not believe for a second that Joaquin Phoenix is a lock. However, I do think it will beat the record. I do think it will win 4 or more. I don't know which ones right now. I don't think it'll be Best Director, but it's got a shot at Best Picture. Joaquin Phoenix is certainly a front runner for winning. Score is certainly right up there. There's a lot of, screenplay. I think it'll break the record. I don't know that for sure, but I think it'll break the record. All right, Zaya writes, how about that Frozen nomination? Oh, wait, never mind. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. Because I thought Frozen 2 was really quite good, so I'm a little bit surprised. But again, I don't have a problem with it because I don't think Frozen 2 had a chance at winning. So unless, I don't call something a snub unless I think the thing that didn't get nominated had a legit shot to win. If there's not an argument that it had a legit shot to win, then was it really a snub? So I won't call it a snub. All right, Lady J writes, prediction, Adam Driver's walkout of Oscars when his clip from Marriage Story is played during the Best Actor nomination. That's clever, Lady J. For those who know what Lady J is referring to, Adam Driver has a request for when he does media interviews. Do not play clips of movies that I'm in while I'm doing your interview. And of course, he famously just walked out of an NPR interview when they knew that he didn't want them to play a clip, and they decided to play a clip anyway. So he got up and walked out of the interview. So that's funny, Lady J. He gets up and walks out of the Oscars and they play a clip from his Marriage Story. Well said. Well said. I like that. That was clever. All right. Zaya writes, Erivo and Johansson got 2 noms. I'm so hyped. Wait a minute. Did she get 2? She got for lead. What'd she get the other? Wait a second. So she got the for actress in Harriet. What else did she get nominated for? She didn't get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. What am I missing? I think I'm missing something here. All right. Tyler Weddle writes, hey, John, I finally saw Knives Out. Good on you. Such a good movie. The movie was good, but there were these 3 jackals next to me that would not shut up the entire movie. Every time there was a big reveal, they shouted it before it happened. Several people told them to be quiet. Listen, I thankfully have not had that kind of bad experience very often anymore. It used to happen a lot more a few years ago, but I find it happens less and less and less. But when that happens, once you ask people to change their behavior because they're ruining the experience for other people who paid to be in there, I'm sorry, you got to go and talk to theater staff. Because they're not just being jackasses and that's just annoying. You and everybody else in that theater paid to be there. And you earned and deserve an uninterrupted theater experience. Now, I don't mind when there are people who have really loud laughs and they laugh, whatever. That's how they laugh. But when people are purposely being obnoxious and they're affecting the film enjoyment of everybody else, you've got to go and talk to the staff and say, look, there's a couple of people in here that are really disrupting the viewing for people. And we've asked and they won't stop. And, I either need a refund for my ticket or I need you to go in and do something. I mean, and then it's on the theater to do something because I think you absolutely should talk to the theater staff. I'm sorry you had that experience, man. That absolutely is stupid. That's absolutely stupid. You shouldn't have had that bad experience. All right. Just time for a couple more here, guys. Then we're going to have to wrap it up for the day. Patty Greasy writes, I'm surprised Edge of Democracy was nominated for Best Doc. It's like the daughter of an indicted Trump supporter made a doc about his impeachment. The director even altered photos, mostly fiction. Again, I've only seen like one of the documentaries. I gotta admit, I've only seen like one of the documentaries, which is why I skipped over it. I've only seen one of like the nominated documentaries this year. I've not kept up with my docs this year. Actually, I've watched a lot of docs this year, but most of them are like a little bit older. So I've only seen like one of the nominated ones, so I don't know it, so I can't really give an opinion on it, unfortunately. All right, Josh J writes, hey, John, you often talk about not making excuses for different opinions, yet you do that with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Hollywood likes movies about Hollywood. Is your reasoning, but maybe people just happen to think it's better than you do. Just saying, you're completely misunderstanding what I'm saying, Josh. Listen, liking a movie, one of the things that triggers in us, and this is true of all movie audience members. This is true of all of us as audience. One of the things that really elicits a response from us about a particular movie is when we feel like we identify with it, right? That doesn't mean we automatically think the movie's good, but there's a certain hook in it for us when it's something we can identify with, right? So you talk about like a BMX movie, right? With BMX racing in it, BMX riders will have a natural inclination towards that because it speaks to their experience. And that is true of all of us. That's true of all of us. As a matter of fact, Anna and I were just talking about Harley Quinn the other day. In the first episode of Harley Quinn, there's this joke where Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are talking. They're arguing over, whether Harley Quinn should text Poison Ivy what she wants at the Thai restaurant. Because Poison Ivy, like Harley Quinn's like, you're standing here right in front of me. Why don't I just tell you what I want? And Poison Ivy's like, because text it to me because I might forget. And if I forget, I'm going to get you the wrong thing. Then you're not going to like what you want, blah, blah, blah. See, I've had that argument with people about, no, I know you're telling me what you want, but do me a favor and text me what you want so we make sure. I've had that argument with people. And so part of the reason for that appeal is that I identify with the experience, right? That's one of the things that all of us as film fans have. When I say that Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood, that's not making an excuse for why they like it, because if they didn't think the movie was good, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if they didn't think the movie was good. But Hollywood, being the Academy being made up of people who work in this industry, directors, actors, writers, studio executives, critics, agents, all that kind of stuff. People who live in Hollywood, work in Hollywood, and part of this whole system, it is as natural for them as it is for us with any other movie that one of the things that will hook themselves into it is when the movie reflects an experience that we can identify with. I think that's one of the reasons why La La Land was so beloved in places like New York and LA is because there's an identification there to the experience. That doesn't mean, though, that if the movie was bad, that they would just say they liked it anyway. I've never said that Hollywood's only going to nominate just because they like movies about Hollywood. There's no other reason. No, they watched it and they loved it. And it has a little extra appeal to them because they identify with it just like all of us do with certain movies. All of us do. It's a part of the natural movie-going experience. It's one of the natural hooks for us. But if the movie was bad, they wouldn't nominate it just because it's a movie about Hollywood. Not at all. But there is a natural kind of leaning there. And that's understandable because it's true of all film fans, not just Hollywood. So you misunderstand, Josh, when I'm not saying that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sucks and everybody in the Academy knows it sucks and they're only going to vote for it because they want to vote for it because it's about Hollywood. No, that's not what I said. And that's not what I meant at all. So I think you just misunderstood me a little bit there, which is totally fine. All right. Yeah, boy, Catman writes, I uploaded my first 3 YouTube videos, and I want to thank you for inspiring me to become a creator. I'm doing a series on my top movies of the decade right now and plan on doing more in-depth reviews and video essays. That is awesome. It's good look. And it doesn't matter if 2 people watch them or 200 people watch them. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that you're adding your voice to the conversation and you're getting involved and having a little bit of a creative outlet doing it. I encourage all film fans to do that. Write a blog, make a podcast, do a YouTube channel, stuff like that. Just get involved in adding your voice to the conversation because it's a lot of fun when you can get more involved in being a film fan and actually, putting some boots to the concrete with it, right? So I think that's great. So good on you, man. Good for you. All right. Alpha writes, I just got time for like 2 or 3 more here, guys, and we got to wrap up. Alpha writes, in 2019, ScarJo was the highest making actress in the world with $56 million. Starred in the highest grossing movie of all time, was nominated for Best Supporting and Best Lead Female roles at the Oscars, and got engaged. She needs to step up her game. Yeah, not a bad year for Scarlett Johansson. one of the stars of the biggest movies of all time, 2 Academy Award nominations, gets engaged. I forgot about that one, by the way. This has not been a bad year for her. This is kind of the year of ScarJo when you really want to think about Alpha. Well said, sir. Well said. All right. Grandmaster writes in, I'm lost for words. John Williams now has 52, and we talked about this early in the show, has 52 nominations within a time span of, yes, exactly 52 years. That is an average of 1 Academy Award nomination per year. Just how? There is a reason he is the GOAT. You can say all you want about some of the other great composers we have, whether it's an Elfman or a Zimmer or a Giacchino or on and on and on and on. John Williams is the Brett the Hitman Hart of music composition. He is the best there is. He is the best there was. He is the best there is ever going to be. That's just him. 52 Academy Award nominations. Absolutely staggering. It is a remarkable feat that all you can do is just shake your head and go, how? How? That's just how prolific, and not just prolific, how incredibly talented the dude is. All right. Goku's son DBZ writes, first off, I'm thrilled with the Joker's nominations at the Oscars. Second, Joker was my favorite film of 2019. Second was Fighting with My Family. Third, Jojo Rabbit. Tell you what, Fighting with My Family might be the most underrated. That and Booksmart are probably the most underrated films of the year. Fighting with My Family is I say this, you guys have heard me say this. Fighting with My Family is a movie that I understand doesn't even look that good. It doesn't even look that good. It is surprisingly heartfelt and charming and funny. If you have not seen Fighting with My Family, take Goku's son DBZ advice and check it out. I think you'd be glad that you did. All right, final 2 questions of the day, guys. Marie Seifring writes, I noticed Jojo Rabbit is nominated for Best Picture and Taika Waititi is nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, but not Best Director. The Best Director category is packed this year. Yeah, I mean, some people will often say when a Best Picture nominee doesn't have their director nominated, people go, I guess the movie directed itself. Well, here's the thing. You have 9 up to 10, but this year we have 9 nominated films, but we only have 5 spots for Best Director. That means there are 4 films that are nominated for Best Picture this year that just aren't going to be able to have their directors nominated for Best Director. And Taika Waititi was one of them. I thought he directed the best film of the year. I thought he deserved a nomination. I'm not going to consider it a massive snub because it is an absolutely packed list. Absolutely. But yeah, I do kind of wish he got that Best Director because what he achieved in that movie, I didn't even know he was capable of. All right. Orange Grow 55 writes, have you seen the High School Musical series on Disney Plus? It's surprisingly great. I didn't even like the original films. No, I'll be honest with you. I have no interest. But it's got a really cool, it's like High School Musical, the sequel or something like that. The full name of it. But it's like High School Musical, the sequel or something along those lines. It's some kind of convoluted title. It's not for me. I mean, it's just not for me. And look, I was explaining a little bit earlier in the show that I am so tight on time for what I do have time to watch and what I don't have time to watch that I definitely don't have, I'm having a hard time just getting through the things I'm interested in and that I like. I don't have a lot of time to check out stuff I'm not interested in. Now, I wasn't interested in the new Harley Quinn show either. But you guys just kept hounding me about it and hounding me about it and hounding me saying, God, John, you got to see it. It's really funny. You're going to like it. I'm like, nah, it looks like crap to me. Finally, I gave in and I tried Harley Quinn. And I got to say, I really like the Harley Quinn animated show. It's really funny. But so maybe the same thing will happen with High School Musical, but it just doesn't look like something that's my personal cup of tea. That's all. All right, guys. Listen, for everybody from Goku on DBZ, Brianna, Nolan, and everybody else who sent in questions, do not worry, your questions are going to get answered in a video, either in a companion video a little bit later today, or yours will be the first questions that we get to on tomorrow's The John Campea Show. One way or the other, your questions that you sent in, they're getting answered properly in a video, so just keep your guys' eyes open for that. But that will do it for all the time that we have today, guys, for The John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this, guys. We appreciate it greatly. Don't forget, The John Campea Show returns again tomorrow with Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett being back in here. Guys, listen. You can use that tip link that's in the top of the description of this video to send in your question anytime 24/7. And then that way your question will be one of the first that gets answered on the show tomorrow, if you so choose to do that. Special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you also supported the channel while you did it at the same time. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, for myself, Jonathan, Ray, Rob, Chris, Aaron, and Chris Aaron, who make their return on this Thursday, by the way. All of us here, thank you for that very, very much. Okay, guys, that will do it for me for now for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.